The Hagmann Hagmann Report for today. It's a very wild Wednesday edition. This is a live broadcast. Today is August 6, 2014. I'm Doug Hagmann, along with my son, Joe Hagmann. Together we are the Hagmann Hagmann Report. Folks, you're in for a great 3-hour program, 3 hours of unbiased and uncensored news, information, analysis, things that you need to know in these very perilous times. Now, we had to there were some rescheduling issues. Chuck Baldwin is going to appear at a later date. Tonight on tap we have, for the first 2 hours, Terry L. Cook, a retired Los Angeles police detective, police investigator, author of Beast Tech. He's going to be talking with us for the first half of the program, for the first couple of hours. And for the second or for the third hour, we're going to have Blaine Cooper with us. Blaine Cooper, if you recall, if that name sounds familiar, he was the Marine that stood up to John McCain and called McCain a traitor for his actions with respect to Syria, helping the anti-Assad rebels in Syria, essentially taking us into the path of World War III. Which reminds me, and I'll mention this, I received a couple of emails. Some people were saying, hey, you know something, your Benghazi, your articles about Benghazi, all of your documentation were gone from your website. Our website, by the way, is homelandsecurityus.com. So I took a look at it, and what it appeared to be, was a menu type of an error. It was nothing nefarious. If you go to homelandsecurityus.com, if you want the background on the articles about Benghazi, all you have to do is look at the top top part of the website there where the menu is, and just click on the tab that says Road to World War III or WW3. And that'll take you to a page that has all of the Benghazi information. And I think you'll find that background not only valuable but pretty interesting, especially in light of the Senate Select Committee here in September. And I just want to say one thing about that, and I mentioned this yesterday, folks, about the Senate Select Committee by Trey Gowdy. Folks, if anything at all, any time, if everything has got to start at Syria. In other words, we have to, if the investigation does not include, or if the epicenter of the investigation really is not with Syria, then it's really not going to go anywhere. We know that the situation is we know that it's not an accurate or not a well-intended investigation. It's got to include, any investigation into Benghazi has got to include Syria. Benghazi, I spent a lot of time today conversing with my intelligence source. Benghazi is much like, or can be compared to, the Bay of Pigs. Now, with Kennedy, of course, Kennedy said no way, no how, in terms of assisting the anti-Castro people, rebels that were CIA trained, refusing to back them up with their power and such. Now, with respect to Obama, of course, you've got Obama that is really behind backing the anti-Assad terrorists, and but the similarities between the two in the larger scheme are pretty striking. But the whole intent of Benghazi was to get us into World War III. That intent is still going on. Don't drop your guard for one moment. The House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, the bipartisan committee that Media Matters is having some sort of orgasmic frenzy, excuse the expression, that's what it seems to be. That, oh boy, they didn't find any controversial evidence that would contradict the official administrative narrative. Are you kidding me? Really? That's their story, and they're sticking to it, correct? Well, I have some things to say, to write about that, and I'm not going to take the time out away from our guest tonight to get into it. But the fact of the matter is, this regime, the renegade-in-chief, Obama, Barack Hussein Obama, the paperless dog in the White House, and with, I mean, no disrespect to our canine companions whatsoever, but the man without a pedigree, without the bona fides in the White House, the renegade-in-chief has got us headlong into World War III, or is getting us headlong into World War III. The difference, on the other hand, is that we called him on it. The new media called him on it, and that stopped. Had it not been for Benghazi and the exposure of Benghazi, perhaps we would be in the throes of World War III right now, and that's not an overstatement. That's not hyperbole. That's just fact. We're going to see how the Gowdy Committee does work, because we do have overlap between the House Permanent Intelligence Committee on the House Permanent Intelligence Committee, and the Senate Select Committee on Benghazi. We have overlap of personnel, and boy, I'll tell you something. It's if the truth does not win the day, then we're in for some bumpy roads. And if the truth does win the day, think about this, folks. I'm just going to plant this seed in your mind, and you take it from here. Imagine, if you will, if we had the internet, instant communication, the ability to communicate, dissect information, 1963 with the Bay of Pigs, or 1995 with Oklahoma City. I mean, I'm talking about the current incarnation of the internet. Of course, we had variations thereof, but think about it. Think about if we would have had the internet during the Gulf of Tonkin. If we would have had the internet at, well, pick one, and Vince Foster murder, the homicide of Vince Foster. Yes, homicide. And I realize there are people that have written columns, books, and given presentations that they believe that it was a suicide. Well, apparently they never got the memo about the autopsy, and that's all I'll say about that. And what was shown during the autopsy to certain individuals. But the bottom line is, any conversation about Benghazi that doesn't have Syria involved, they're not out for truth. Now, with that, I'm just Joe. Welcome, by the way, to the studio. I just kind of let you do your thing over there.
Great to be here. We have with us our guest, Mr. Terry Cook. Terry Cook has a extensive bio and recently retired from radio and what he's been doing. But Terry Cook is a prolific speaker. He has been a guest on several radio shows and different conferences, speaker at different conferences, and we had the pleasure of meeting him in Florida at the Prophecy in the News Conference down in Florida. And, we've had him on the show previously, but to meet somebody in person, it's a real treat. And it's a pleasure to have him on, as he's not really doing radio interviews anymore. Mr. Cook, it's great to have you back.
Sorry, Joe. We dragged Terry Cook back on, and I got to tell you, folks, I like Terry Cook. Joe likes Terry Cook. We both like Terry Cook, and we love his book, Beast Tech.
Thank you, Doug and Joe, and I'm glad you clarified that. You drugged me back on, but it is not Terry Cook in drag.
well, no, wait. We don't have video here. Personally, I'm not wearing any pants. Okay, no, I'm just kidding.
and I tell you, it's a pleasure to do your show. It's not a drag, so I'm playing on that word a little bit. Okay, I do have a sense of humor.
we do too, and you've got to have a sense of humor in these days. You really do, and you can't take yourself too seriously. And it's just one of those things. But we're talking about some serious topics, aren't we? You've written about them.
Since our last radio show, Joe and Doug, things have gone exponential. When you arrive at an exponential point, and you think to yourselves, or you think to ourselves, or we think individually, we think, gee, it just can't get any worse. But then 2 or 3 months later, it's 100 times worse. That's where we are today, and it's just coming like a flood. So I think, and all this is just the beginning of woes, and the beginning of ordo ab chaos, order from chaos, wherein the world has to be thrown entirely upside down before a paradigm shift into the satanic communist new world order can take place. So we are accelerating toward that crucible, that cauldron, that melting pot, stirring pot, into total chaos that will essentially bring everything unglued. Take everything unglued. Just make it come. The whole world will be coming unglued in every imaginable and unimaginable respect. Disease, earthquakes, bad weather, bad politics, bad players, bad actors, bad everything. And then the whole world gets turned upside down to where everybody who's alive after World War III that you just said is about to happen, Doug, and you're absolutely right. Everybody who remains alive after that, and probably 2 billion people will die during World War III, but we'll still have 4 billion left, and those 4 billion will need a Messiah, a phony Messiah, and the Bible calls him the Antichrist, Mr. 666. That's where it's all going. That's
exactly. You know what, Terry, that you're exactly right. And, let me do this. Before we get into the meat of tonight's program, for the people who don't know you like we do, you're a retired Los Angeles sheriff's investigator, correct?
Yes, I'm a retired Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, not LAPD. A lot of people ask me if I know Mark Furman, and no, I don't. However, he lives in the same region up here in Spokane, North Idaho area. But I've never met him in person, and I don't know Mark Furman because he was LAPD and I was LA Sheriff. But I did handle Charles Manson when I was right out of the police academy at age 22 during that trial, the Charles Manson fiasco. What else can you call it? So, yeah, I have an extensive background in that. I did 6 years in a police car on the streets of Los Angeles handling the Crips, the Bloods, and, of course, back then the MS-13 gang didn't even exist. They now do, and they're flooding into America big time. But I've handled all that stuff. I handled 8 murders in 6 years in a police car, took a lot of bad guys to jail, rolled around in a few intersections and got the stuff kicked out of me a couple of times, but always won eventually. And so I have that background as well as that. I'm a licensed FAA commercial jet pilot and got a couple thousand hours under my belt in that regard. I wanted to be, my avocation way back then when I left police work was to become a commercial airline transport pilot, an airline pilot. So I got my second degree. My first one's in criminal law. My second was aviation science, a BS in aviation science. And I took every course available, and you got almost every license available in aeronautics. And so I have $40,000 worth of licenses in my back pocket. And so when I got to the point where I really was ready to become an airline pilot after I retired from police work, the whole economy dove into the ground, and Pan Am went belly up and bankrupt, and so that didn't happen for me. Then I read a few Christian books on the New World Order, and that was 1987, and here I am today.
Wow.
So that's kind of my background, and I have an extensive background in many other things, and now I've retired, as you said correctly, from the ministry, which didn't pay at all, and I did it for God and country. And now I'm running my own business in the Northwest called Superior Business Solutions, and I help small to medium-sized businesses survive from Obamacare, which is communist medicine, and I help them survive and plan strategically for survival in the next few months and years under this communist world government that's coming in our country, led by the communist in charge, Mr. Abomination.
Yes.
So that's kind of my background. And I've written about 17 books over the last 25 years. I started in 1989, Doug, and I've retired from that. My last book was jointly written by Tom Horn, as you know, and you have a copy of it, I believe. Beast-Tech. It's now out of print. It didn't sell. It sold about 7,000 copies, and it was one of the biggest flops Tom Horn has ever had. Nobody Wants the Truth. It was a fabulous book and well written, 300 pages, and it just didn't sell. I have 7 copies on my shelf behind me, and it's out of print, and Tom's not going to reprint it, and so it was a failure. So that's when I just decided that I was going to retire. It's all over but the shouting. The shouting is about to begin. Few people even listen to conservative radio and talk show anymore. That's why I decided to drop out, and even fewer people buy my books. You see, I have 17 of them available on Amazon.com. Folks, if you want one of my books, just go to Amazon.com, click on the books section, and then put my name in, Terry L. Cook, Terry L. Cook. But guess what? Before I retired, I was selling a couple hundred a month. Now it's down to like 30 to 50 books a month. Few people are reading anymore, reading books, that is. They're on the Internet getting their material, or they're watching movies. So book publishing houses are having a difficult time selling books because most people are just on the Internet and they're not reading anymore. But this kind of stuff, even Christian distribution houses. Tom Horn told me that one of the major, and I won't mention any names, one of the major Christian distribution houses refused to even distribute our book, Beast-Tech. They thought it was crazy. You see, they didn't want to distribute it.
Terry, look, I've read that book, and in fact, I've got it on my bookcase behind me. I refer to it quite often because you've got a lot of facts and information in there.
It's good. Yeah, it's very good.
I thought so too. Yeah. I don't get this.
Well,
go ahead, sir.
You can only get it, brothers Doug and Joe. You can only get it if you understand end times prophecy, because it says no one will want to hear the truth anymore, and the truth of God will be lifted out of earth so that people can be totally deceived into following and worshiping the Antichrist, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. So that's where we are. And so I just accepted that and realized that, I spent 8 months, day and night, promoting the book on radio and television, and only 7,000 copies sold after 8 months. I worked day and night for free, just promoting my book. I could have done better on food stamps and welfare, guys. I could have made a lot more money on food stamps and welfare. So I only made, I'm going to tell everybody, in 8 months of work, I only made $6,782 total from 8 months of work promoting my book and lecturing. I mean, nobody wants the truth anymore. I did better than that 20 years ago. I did much better than that 20 years ago.
And folks, I can say this. I can verify what Terry's saying, and it's amazing because people, there's been this mental shift, or this not only mental but spiritual shift away from the truth, and it's a sad thing. It really is. But you've got this. To me, you've got this very unique perspective. Having your background in law enforcement, being an investigator, understanding the investigative aspect of things, and then applying your investigative knowledge to today. You can see what's going on. So that's why I like you a lot in terms of your ability to look at something and explain it to the public. And
well, thanks, Doug. And you too. You have an excellent ability. Now, here's another thing God gave me, and I used it for 20 years. But when the book flopped, God just told me. I didn't hear His voice from heaven like Moses did on the mountain. I mean, I just felt this message come to me somehow that said, "Okay, you've been doing this for 25 years, Terry. Nobody wants to hear it anymore. Wash your hands of this and go on. It's all over. The world is about to turn upside down, where there'll be no truth or very little, and it's all over. Your time is past. You've been beaten up enough, and just back off and let me do my thing," which is the fulfillment of prophecy. Okay. Now, another background I have that I didn't share with you is I was a Vietnam veteran. I am a Vietnam veteran in the Navy. I was a young boy, 18, and so I was a petty officer, E6. If anybody in the military is listening, they know that's a pretty high enlisted rank. And so I did a couple of years in the Philippines supporting our so-called war effort that was phony in the beginning. The whole Vietnam War was phony, and 58,000 of our boys died for nothing for the New World Order, while the hippies were over here promoting communism, and that's what it all was about. The KGB started the hippie movement, and it was all an orchestrated revolution to begin the final revolution, which we are about to begin here now. The literal revolution on the street with guns and Molotov cocktails is about to begin. But in addition to having spent, my enlisted time as a young boy in the Navy during the Vietnam War, after that I got a commission in the National Guard in Southern California, and my Major Biber, who's now dead of Agent Orange problems, he and I were great together because we hated the communists so badly we became anti-communist experts, with me finally doing, initially I did infantry. I was, a squad commander on infantry, a squad leader they called it, as a, commissioned National Guard officer. And then I went into tanks because Major Biber loved tanks, and he talked me into that. So I did tanks, infantry, and then I got into military intelligence, where I became an anti-communist intelligence expert for the National Guard. So that's what gave me all the insight on stuff that would subsequently go into my books regarding what the New World Order is. At the time, back then, when I was a National Guard officer, I had no idea what the New World Order was. Nobody was really talking about it. George Bush hadn't yet done his thing in 1991, where he said it 200 times with 1,000 points of light, and I investigated him and found out he's a Satanist with the Skull and Bones Brotherhood of Death cult in New Haven, Connecticut. So I didn't really know any of that stuff, but I did know that communism was evil, and all it did was lie and kill. And I didn't want it to happen to America, so I became an anti-communist expert. And with all that background, police, military, and then somebody figured they needed to ordain me in 1993 when I did a radio show in Southern California. A very fine man down there ordained me. So I've never been to seminary. Did I say that right, Doug? Seminary or cemetery?
They're interchangeable. Trust me.
So much so, it's a grave situation, isn't it? I keep digging holes for myself. But anyway, somebody ordained me back there, and so I've never been to a formal Christian college or seminary. I'll say it right this time. But I did study under Hal Lindsey, who wrote the book, The Late Great Planet Earth. He had a church in Southern California, and I studied under him from 1989 for 3 years, and then he moved to Tulsa, where he now is. But that's where I got all my prophecy training, but it wasn't formal. You see, it was just in church every Sunday, and I read all his books, and I studied Bible prophecy. So when George Bush in 1991 mentioned the New World Order, that's what really brought it all together for me, Doug and Joe. And Sheila, I know you're listening. That's what really brought it all together for me. I went home after a prophetic utterance from Hal Lindsey one day in his church in Torrance, California. I went home and watched George Bush say New World Order several times, and then subsequently he said it a total of roughly 200 times within a short span of time. And I didn't really understand that fully, but I investigated it, and that's what launched me into a 5-year investigation of the New World Order, resulting in my first book that was 730 pages long and 8.5 by 11 inside, like a telephone directory, about 2.5 inches thick, The Mark of the New World Order. I published that in 1994, sold 5,000 copies that I published myself, self-published. It was picked up by Whitaker House 4 years later. We reduced it to a smaller size and 450 pages. By the way, 6 months ago, I just republished that original 1994 book with a new cover on it, and it's available at Amazon.com books, Terry L. Cook under author name. And so you can still get a copy of that 1994 book. And what I'd like to just point out, in all due humility, is that it's been 99% accurate, and I wrote it in 1994. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's a pretty comprehensive and short synopsis synopsis. And during all that time, I attended college full-time and completed 340 semester units of college over a 15-year period at night, worked a full-time job, had a family, and wrote books and did radio and television and did flying in my airplane on weekends and got my airline transport pilot's license. In between all that, I averaged sleeping about 3 to 4 hours a night over about a 15-year period. That's why I'm bald, Doug. That's why I'm bald. I'm completely bald.
Yeah, we can pick you out of a crowd, as we did in Orlando. Yeah, I'm tired just listening to you, frankly. My goodness.
So am I. I'm 67 this week, so show a little respect.
Well,
very
birthday.
Little. Very
Happy
little.
Birthday.
That's all I get. Thank you very much. The mind's
67.
still good, but the body is going. The body's about ready for the junkyard with 3 million miles on it, but the mind is still active, you know.
Sure. Well, when you get to the point of having your wife wipe the oatmeal from your chin, you know you got a problem. But
how did you know she did that yesterday, Doug? How did you know she did that yesterday? because I have to have mine do that occasionally myself. So Joe, he refuses to do it. You're too young.
You know, I got to tell you, Terry, we're in. It seems like everyone we're looking at a very gloomy. We talk about gloomy topics all the time, and yet, you know, you've got a very good sense of humor. You've got you've got a way about you.
Look, Doug, thank you very much, and I appreciate that. And you know, you have to have in order to stay sane. Now, here's what happened to me at the Prophecy Conference. You know, normally I've always had a very good sense of humor, and even in tough times, I always try to have a light heart. And so I joked around with people at the Prophecy Conference, and Prophecy in the News was very irate with me about, being a little bit silly and funny and trying to make people laugh around all these very serious speakers who were talking about the end of the world and everything going to heck in a handbasket and everything else. And so I stood out in the hallway in front of the lecture hall, the huge big hall that I met you guys at. And I signed about 500 of my books and joked around with people. And Prophecy in the News, they didn't even smile at me. They were angry with me for having a light heart, and subsequently sent me chastising emails for doing so. I mean, that's when I really washed my hands, Joe and Sheila and Doug. That's when I said, okay, I am out of this stuff. These people are crazy. When the Prophecy in the News people go nuts, and all the other Christian ministries say we can't sell your book because it's crazy, it's fringe, it's lunatical. Is that the right word, lunatical?
We can make that. We can make that in our vocabulary there.
Exclusive to you.
Well, you know, that's when I said, okay, it's all over. I'm out of this. I'm done, and I'm retired. I'm going back into the business world, and I'll help small and medium-sized businesses survive Obama scare. And so that's pretty much where it is. And thank you for the compliment for having a good sense of humor, because you got to, because if you dwell on this day and night, you just go nuts. I mean, there's just too many evil things happening out there.
Yeah, there is, and you know, there's a time for seriousness, and there's a time to be lighthearted. But you know, we do have to recognize the fact that we're in some dire straits right now. Terry, what do you see personally, you as and by the way, I want to just acknowledge and say thank you very much to Sheila Zielinski, Weekend Vigilante. God bless you, Sheila. You're a wonderful asset to our ministry, to our endeavor, and thank you so much. But Terry, what do you see as perhaps the most? I mean, where do you start? You look at the headlines today: Ebola, southern border. My goodness, where do you start?
Well, first of all, I want to compliment you for being closely associated ministry-wise with Sheila, because I want you to know I've done, thousands over the last 25 years, perhaps thousands of radio and television shows, even the History Channel. And the one that stands out in my mind, there are several, but the one who's still at the top of the list is Sheila, because she is an absolute saint. I mean, no one's perfect, okay? But her heart is exactly like yours, Doug, and Joe, and mine, and, and a few others. So 100% patriot, even though she's, Canadian. I mean, she was born in America, as I recall. I think she was born in Montana. Sheila, correct me if I'm wrong. But
Minnesota, somewhere up there.
She's an American Canadian, as it were, and she's just a super cool, lovely saint. And I'm saying this as another Christian brother to her, that I just love her to death, and I'm not saying that for any other reason than as a Christian brother, okay? Because I'm happily married to a gorgeous redhead. But you gotta explain these things today, because there's so many Christians out there that'll take something like what I just said out of whack, and then accuse you of having an affair with somebody. I've never even met Sheila in person. We've just done a lot of radio and telephonic exchange together. But I really am saying this to encourage people. Doug, if you could give out her mailing address. She needs ministry help right now. Her ministry funds are close to the bottom, and we need to keep her on the air. And I'm sure all good Christian truth-telling ministries are having the same problem right now. I know many of them are. So if people can find an extra buck in their pocket and help Sheila pay some radio time bills and stay on the air, that would be a very, very fine gesture and a personal favor to me. Not that matters to anybody, I guess, but honestly, we need to keep that very fine woman on the air, and she's running out of radio time money. So God bless you, Sheila, and I hope that helped a little bit, and perhaps someone will be listening who's able to support your ministry financially.
Yeah,
and
thank you, Terry. The Weekend Vigilante, theweekendvigilante.com is her website. Or wait a minute, I'm sorry. Weekend Vigilante. What am I saying? Terry, hold on just one second here. Let me double check here.
I think that's correct, Doc. I think that's correct. Weekendvigilante.com.
Yeah, okay. It's Weekend. Right, Weekend, it's weekendvigilante.com, and of course on the right-hand side is where you can support her on the right-hand side of her page, weekendvigilante.com. But thanks for bringing that up, because it's like everyone is having just such a difficult time.
Yes.
It seems like
yes.
we're all fighting that fight.
Yes. Anyone who's telling the truth, Doug, anyone who's telling the truth, as you and Joe and Sheila and myself, I'm just glad I didn't have to make a living, during the 8 months I told you where I only made less than $7,000. I mean, I could have done better on food stamps and welfare, and many of them are. And so most people out there who are really telling the truth in a very politically incorrect fashion are just losing it. People don't want to hear it anymore. Satan's coming down. He's quashing all the truth, and he's deceiving everybody. And so it's only going to get worse. So I hope you guys can survive what's coming, and I hope all the truth tellers who are out there and struggling can get some support from those who really are old school. And that's what it amounts to, Doug. The young people, they don't want to hear this stuff. They think we're kooks. So the old school is dying off, including me. I'm starting to feel some aches and pains at 67 this week. So we're all dying off. I'm losing friends around me. I lost my sister last year. So if we don't get some people in our sons and daughters' generation, forget all that XYZ garbage about Generation X. And I mean, let's just talk about our sons and daughters' generation, our kids. And there aren't very many of them who want to support such ministry. So just expect things to get more and more terrible in that regard, and less supportive financially and less supportive in every realm. And eventually Satan's going to quash all of the truth and just try to destroy us. And so you just got to do the best you can. I don't know what else to say. That's why I retired from the ministry and just moved back into business, because I just I saw the handwriting on the wall. Now, I know you guys are going to continue, and I encourage everybody listening to this program to support Sheila, as we just discussed, and Doug and Joe, and anybody who's doing this is under incredible spiritual attack. You know, their families are under attack. Their wives are giving their men trouble, and it's just getting terrible. I mean, it's just another sign of the end times, and that's all I can say. It's just it's a terrible time, and it's only going to get worse.
It's another thing too. We hear from a lot of people, and a lot of people are in this position. We'll get emails. My husband is not on board with me. My wife is not on board with me.
Yep.
There's division within the families.
Yes. Well, that's how Satan gets in there and destroys ministries, you see, because he doesn't want this truth to get out, and we don't have that much time in which to do it anyway, before the government either arrests us or we just get old and die. So I think the government's going to arrest us first, though, because we have a Sunni Muslim communist in the White House, and he's now purging, by the way. The latest articles on the military purge is he's now purging another 2,000 majors, lieutenant colonels, and captains who oppose him from all services. So he's already fired, I think 6 months ago or sometime around that time frame, he's already fired 200 of the top admirals and general commanders that opposed him. They're gone. They've retired, forced retirement. They were fired. And now he's getting rid of all of the lower ranks, and he's also reducing our military to an inoperable level of strength to the point where we can be conquered. And this is a long-term communist plan. Remember, I told you I have a very strong background in that, to disarm us to where we could be conquered. So if I may, let me tell you what I think Obama's going to do during his last 2 years. Can you give me 5 minutes on that?
Yeah, let me just jump in here before you do.
Okay.
I just want to say you're absolutely right. Obama, the renegade in chief, has fired 197 flag corps officers in the last 5 years. He fired 9 decorated generals, 3 who disagreed with him or with the cover-up of Benghazi, 2 of which oversaw the nuclear part of the military. He has had secret meetings with the Muslim Brotherhood at the White House. He has made the White House visitor logs have been made secret. He's appointed 5 Muslim Brotherhood members of his national security team as national security advisors, and that's kind of what you were referencing. And of course, we know wherefore by their fruits ye shall know them. Yes. Terry, going to turn it over to you. Go ahead, my friend.
Here's what I see happening based on 25 years of research, having become at one point, and still am really, a anti-communist expert in the military, and from my own studies, and with all of that, combining that with Bible prophecy, realizing that the New World Order is global communism. However, you must understand the spiritual side of communism, which is Satanism in disguise. And I wrote a 30-page booklet on that. Revolution, communism is Satanism in disguise. So who's really going to lead this New World Order? Well, a global leader, of course, through the United Nations, which was founded by communists, okay, including Alger Hiss, a communist spy. Okay, so you have to understand the United Nations is communist, founded by communists, and now the United States is being led by a Sunni Muslim radical revolutionary communist, and they're purging the U.S. government of all old school people who believed in the Constitution, believed in protecting America from all enemies, foreign and domestic. And now we actually have a foreign and domestic enemy in the White House leading us and purging all of the people who might even think about getting rid of him or perhaps even having a military coup. And there were a lot of rumors about that, and I believe that's why he fired those 197 people you talked about, because I still have a few connections, not the kind you have, Doug, or not the kind that others have, but I still have a few connections, and there were strong rumors of a constitutional coup by some top military commanders against Obama. Now he quelled that. That's gone. And he's getting rid of all the lower echelon commanders so that he only has lapdogs and bootlickers under him that just want a military career of any kind. They don't care about the Constitution. And, of course, Obama and Biden just lectured at the Air Force Academy graduating class of cadets recently, and said Obama followed up with Biden's first lecture. I think it was on a different day subsequently. But Biden actually said that to these Air Force kids, you know, these 20-year-old, 21-year-old graduating cadets from the Air Force Academy, he says, you are the people who will lead the New World Order. He said that the phrase New World Order right there at the Air Force Academy graduating class just a couple of months ago, I believe. Okay, I don't know the exact date.
I remember that.
So, yeah. Okay, so we're going into this New World Order whether we like it or not, and most people don't even know enough about it to know whether they like it or not. They're ignorant. We're sheeple, as it were, sheep people, and we have been dumbed down exactly like the Communist Party promised us 50 years ago in one of their manuscripts, that we would be promised peace and safety, and then we would see these overtures of peace never before seen by communists. They would actually feign weakness when they were strong. They would take down the Berlin Wall to fool us, put us to sleep, and then they would propagandize us until our brains were mush. So much so, this is one of the quotes from the 1931 Communist manual that was taught at the Leninist School of Communism in 1931, and I have this in my book, Obama's Nation, A Communist Abomination. And folks, if you really want to know who that guy is, get my book, Obama's Nation, A Communist Abomination, because this is one of the quotes in there. It says, we'll first put the Americans to sleep, and after we have brainwashed them into the state of mind where they would actually rejoice in their own destruction. Now, keep in mind, I'm quoting exactly. That's the phrase they use. They would actually brainwash Americans over a period of decades to where they wouldn't even realize that their minds had been taken over, so much so that they would actually, listen to this, I'm quoting, they would actually rejoice in their own destruction. And that's exactly where we are today with Obama in office. Now, he has 2 more years. People say, gee, the average ignorant fool on the street, they say, gee, in 2 years we can vote him out. I said, no, we're not going to have another election. Communist, radical, revolutionary, Islamic Brotherhood leaders never leave office by means of the voting booth. Now, he got into the voting booths fraudulently, and we've heard so many stories about that, no one even wants to hear about it anymore. And he was actually brought to power by a skewed vote with Diebold Voting Company, owned by the elitists, the Satanists, the Illuminati, the Brotherhood of Darkness, as Stan Monteith calls them. And those are the people really running the show. They own everything, and they own the voting system and everything else, you see. So they make it look good, like it's a nice dog and pony show where Obama, gee, he's struggling to get this vote. When the outcome's already been foretold, they've already determined it, they just make it look good, kind of like Hollywood movie. They script it so that it looks like Obama just barely made it, but he did win over that rotten, no-good conservative Romney, who's also a crook, and on and on and on. And how about George Bush, who was also a Satanist, Brotherhood of Death, Skull and Bones. His son, W. Bush, they made a movie after him, the W. Skull and Bones, Brotherhood of Death, I believe it was 1967. And then George Bush Sr.'s dad, Skull and Bones, Brotherhood of Death. Before World War II, he was also a Nazi. That was Prescott Bush, 1917 class of Yale Brotherhood of Death cult. He actually ran a bank in Manhattan that funded the Nazis, and so on and so on and so on. And I could bore you to death with all that, but listen, it's all spiritual. This is the final war between God and Satan. The political stuff is a facade. It's a smoke screen. When the spirit behind the New World Order, the spirit behind the communists in the White House and the Sunni Muslims is Satan. And his job in John 10:10 is he comes to kill, rob, and destroy. And communists come to kill, rob, and destroy. Islam comes to kill, rob, and destroy. Islam lies to achieve their ends. communism lies to achieve their ends. They'll smile, lie, put a dagger in your back, because they lie and then they kill. Now, that's where I'm going in the next 2 years under the Obama administration. You see, since the Berlin Wall came down and Mr. Gorbachev, a KGB expert, communist, and by the way, George Bush Sr. decreed to him a portion of the Presidio in San Francisco, where he set up the KGB Academy for America and began lecturing at universities right from the old Army base in San Francisco, the Presidio, and Mr. Bush Sr. gave him that position, you see. So he set up a red phone right to Moscow, and he began propagandizing America after Glasnost and Perestroika, you see. That was all a smokescreen to put Americans asleep and then bring the top communist leader over here at the time and begin propagandizing America, make their brains into mush so that they can't think outside the box they're about to be buried in. And I call that a pine in the neck, because usually those burial boxes are pine unless you have a lot of money. Okay? So that's why I say they're not thinking outside the box they're about to be buried in, because that's where we're going in the next 2 years in my vision after having studied this in all respects for 25 years. Now, there is a planned revolution coming, ladies and gentlemen. Planned revolution. And if you can't get a hold of that, then you just haven't studied this for 25 years. So go ahead, start studying, read some more books. And the average good person, Joe and Sheila and Doug, they just can't get their arms around this because it's so evil. The average person says, why would anybody want to do something like that? I said, because they're Satanists in disguise. They're really communists with a political label on their head. But behind that smokescreen, they're really Satanists. And Satan comes to John 10:10, kill, rob, and destroy. That's his only job. There's no mercy in him, and he's the father of all lies and the murderer from the beginning, according to Jesus. So, what we're about to see right now, the velvet glove is about to come off the iron fist. And see, they've taken 6 years under Obama. He was a plant. He was a programmed party puppet, still is. He gets his orders from Valerie Jarrett, the communist handler in the White House. She gets her orders from the Communist Party USA. Communist Party USA gets its orders from Vladimir Putin, the head of the Central Committee, the head of the KGB. So all this stuff you're seeing right now about Russia going into Ukraine and Obama threatening Putin, it's all staged. The script has been written for years. It's all staged. It's the Hegelian dialectic whereby they control one side, the opposing side, and then they mesh us and merge us together in a synthesis. The thesis versus the antithesis converge and merge us into the synthesis, meaning the New World Order, and that's where they merge old-style communism with late-style capitalism. And I mean late-style capitalism, which has been socialized. Capitalism is now socialized to where it's almost communist, and now the communists will move in with the troops and liquidate all opponents to the final end plan and end game, you see. So what we're going to see, I think, if I'm properly schooled, and I know I am, is in the next 2 years you're going to see more and more truth about this guy in the White House leak out. And some of us in the Patriot community and the conservative radio and television show, they are actually going to help in this effort because this information will be strategically leaked by certain government sources. You know, I'm seeing them all over the Internet. I mean, who's this guy, Hawk? And then there's another one, W. And then there's another CIA source, so-and-so, and this and that. These, in my opinion, my educated opinion, are strategic leaks of very, very truthful information pieces that will allow everybody, I'm going to say this frankly, folks, excuse me for saying this. I'm going to say this very frankly as an ex-cop and an ex-military man. Okay, the communists now want to piss off America to the point where they'll revolt. That's the end-time game, you see? And that's been the game for 50-plus years, actually starting in 1931. They want a revolution. And Americans have been put to sleep. Now they want them to awaken to a revolution. They want them to get in the street. They want to do everything they can to expose Obama and all of his henchmen for what he has done. Pretty soon, all this truth will be leaked through various so-called CIA sources to various Patriot community sources through W and Hawk and whatever. And I'm not alleging that any of these people consciously are participating. I'm saying they're probably being used by very sophisticated CIA, KGB, New World Order sources who are leaking truthful information about Obama, because now it's time to take the velvet glove off the iron fist, and the end game is a planned revolution and an economic collapse in World War III, probably nearly simultaneously or thereabouts. So you're going to get Doug, you, and Joe, fine Christian men, but you are going to probably have many CIA operatives, KGB operatives, alleged sources from government sources and so forth approach you with secret stuff they want you to reveal that's all been scripted. And that will go on the airwaves and on the internet, and people, Americans, will finally wake up to what's happened. They'll wake up from this so-called socialist propagandized form of brain death they've been in for the last 20 years. And
okay,
so now it's...
Just for the sake of full disclosure, okay, I personally know W. I mean, very, very, very close to him, and I've got to tell you, I've spent a lot of time with him, and I know his heart, and I know that I got to tell you, Terry, I would say this: of all the people in my life that I've known, he's one of a handful of people I would absolutely trust. Given the fact of everything I've now, knowing what people don't know about him, I know about him. So now there are others out there that. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, and again, I don't mean to disparage any such people. Now, you see, he may be getting information very, very innocently that he thinks is correct. See, what I'm trying to say is many fine people like him, whoever he is, may be being used by the hierarchy in order to disperse this so-called secret information that they now want to release in order to piss us all off into a revolution. You see what I mean? Now, there's another guy out there who alleges to be an ex-CIA operative. I believe his name is Jim Caro or Garrow or something like that, or Gary.
Yeah, Jim Garrow. Garrow, yeah.
Now, this guy is one smart cookie, and he allegedly now is overseas doing some very good things, helping people and things overseas, and but yet he was once a former, or he is a former, according to him, he's a former CIA agent. Now, listen, I'm suspicious about Jimmy. I've watched a few of his videos. And I believe he's a very discreet, covert operator. Now, he's disclosing some very, very sensitive information. So where is he getting the information? And how come he's being allowed to live? And so on and so on. You get my drift. So, but the point is now he's disclosing on YouTube and everything else some very truthful information that they want to be released now. He's right. You see? But I believe that if he's for real, and if he's a real American patriot, he loves America, and he's not just a covert operator, if he's for real, then I believe he's being used innocently to get this truth out in order to create a panic and a pissing off session of the American people. You see? They got to create a revolution. And then once the revolution starts and it's bloody, they want it to be bloody for about 6 months to a year. And that's why they've allowed us to buy all these guns and ammo, and now they're cutting it off. You see, we got enough. Homeland Security will never have enough. What do they have, 2 billion rounds or something now? And they got plenty of 12-gauge double-aught bucks, so they're ready, but they're still buying. But they figure we gun owners now have enough, so they're cutting off the ammo, they're closing the lead mine, and they're doing this and doing that. You can't even get 22 ammo that in my area. It's gone. So they want a revolution, and they want it to be bloody, messy, and deadly for about 6 months to a year. But in order to get Americans on the street ready for that, they got to piss them off badly. So expect more and more truths to be revealed leaked from inside government sources, well-planted inside government, strategically leaked to all the people we just talked about, I just described, perhaps even ever so innocently. You see? They may be being used in order to agitate people to the point of a revolution. So that's what I see happening in the next year. And then once the people hit the street with the rocks, bottles, and everything else, all the UN vehicles that are being strategically planted nationwide, all the military surplus vehicles now that are being given ever so sweetly from the military free to all our small police departments, even small 100 to 200 person police departments are getting armored vehicles from Afghanistan now. I mean, what the hell are they going to do with the bomb-resistant $1 million armored vehicle? Yeah, okay.
It's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous, but it's a strategic plant, you see, because under martial law, they'll all be federalized. They already pretty much have been, but then they will formally be federalized in and under NORTHCOM, and that's in Colorado Springs. That's NORAD NORTHCOM at Colorado Springs Airport now, which has been heavily infiltrated by the communist KGB. In fact, so much so that communists are actually there now in the strategic planning sessions and have permanent billets on base. You see?
All right.
This martial law will be orchestrated from NORTHCOM's headquarters at NORAD. NORAD used to be in the mountains there in Colorado Springs, but it was removed. The headquarters was removed to the surface and combined at the old Colorado Springs airport, and now NORAD and NORTHCOM work together there with the Russians.
Okay. Now, it's interesting how you approach this, because I just had a conversation with my intelligence source W today, and we were talking exactly about this very topic, about the fact that more and more truth will come out.
Yes,
about this. Go ahead.
Exactly for that reason, Doug. You see, now you understand the communist game. You see, they want a revolution, so now the velvet glove is coming off, and they're preparing the AK-47s, the Molotov cocktails, and these won't be at nightclubs, but they will use nightsticks on us. Boy, that was terrible, wasn't it? It won't be you won't get a Molotov cocktail at a nightclub, but you will get a nightstick used on you. Terrible joke.
Now my question to you is, though, if our job is to bring out the truth. I mean, that's what we're doing on the radio. We absolutely need to bring out the truth. Good, bad, indifferent. We've got to say, look, this is the truth about the renegade in chief. This is the truth. This is what his agenda is. This is what their agenda is.
Yes.
We've got to do it.
You absolutely have to do it, Doug. You absolutely have to, and you're doing a fabulous job with the sweetest heart imaginable. But I'm just cautioning you that many of the things that are going to be leaked out to you through whatever sources are probably strategically planted, truthful items, very truthful. There won't be any lies this time. They're going to give us the truth because they want us to be pissed. It's going to be absolutely 100% verifiable truth. Okay? And so you just continue doing the very best job you can, but realize that some people may approach you with some secrets that may be strategic plants from whatever sources. Now you understand? You see?
Oh, absolutely. There will be planted information that you know that for a fact, and planted for the purpose of stirring up the masses. However, we've got to anticipate that like a multi-level chess game. So you've got to. It's difficult, yet it's not. We have to see through their agenda. Terry, we're up against the top of the hour, folks. You're listening to the Hagmann Hagmann Report. Interesting conversation indeed. Terry Cook is our guest, author, former Los Angeles Sheriff's Department investigator, number of years on the street there, licensed pilot, author, his books, Amazon.com. Terry, hang with us for a moment. We're up against the break. You're listening to the Hagmann Hagmann Report.
I'll be back in 2 minutes. Thank you.
The Hagmann Report on this August 6th, 2014, a Wednesday, with our very special guest, Mr. Terry Cook. with that, I'm going to hand it over to my dad. I'm going to bring Terry back on. Go take it away, Dad.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah. All right, Terry. Hey, Terry, I got to tell you something. You talk about the divine, something divine here. Early this morning, and I mean early this morning, I had a conversation, quite a lengthy conversation with the gentleman W you mentioned, and I just spoke to him, and he says, Terry's right. Terry is correct. You are correct. And Terry, with your permission, W is here. In fact, we're going to have to get him a chair in the studio. He wants to add a couple of things to what you had said. I mean, he's in agreement with you. He wants to say a few things. Do you mind if we bring him on just for a few minutes?
No. What a pleasure. And I meant no negative inference to hit.
None taken.
There
what's interesting, what's interesting here, Terry, and it's an important point. Doug and I have been talking for the last several months, and I have been warning essentially almost word for word what you described, really even last year, that there were going to be very serious attempts, and there have been. I could name several of them that I believe were in fact these types of attempts to sift in information in a way that essentially vilifies America. And in fact, that's the way that I've been saying it and encouraging others to say it. There's a lot of leaks occurring that ultimately are about vilifying America, the American people, our military, our government. And part of that is in order to make it easier for the rest of the world to attack us at every level.
Yes.
Because they are being programmed to believe, understand, get ready to react to this information. We're the bad guys. We've stolen everything from them. Our dollars, on their backs, etc. And that's part of this process of taking us down, burning us down, baby. And so those strategic leaks of information, including, I would say right up front, Snowden. And there's very credible people in these communities who have valid, serious questions and doubts about whether or not, for example, Snowden was as much his own man as he's purported to be, or if in fact this is part of some much more elaborate campaign where he was strategically in place to have access and be able to do all the things that he did, and then leak it as part of this much larger campaign. Not, in the spy versus spy world, there's a lot of layers to the lie and to the truth.
Amen to that, brother. Amen to that. It's so sophisticated, it's incomprehensible.
Well, they've gamed this out so many ways and so many levels, and so the only things I would add to what you were saying, and I wanted to make sure that the audience understood that I wasn't, because a lot of them know me from this audience, and I wasn't taking any offense at all. I understand the concern, so I wanted to make sure that they knew that I wasn't feeling like oh my gosh, W is being attacked, and not at all.
And I didn't mean to disparage you and single you out.
I get what you're saying, because I get that. In fact, let me just add this one thing. Some events occurred over the last couple of months, of which I've talked with Doug specifically about. And I'll just say it this way to the audience. Within those contexts, one of the things that occurred was that with some folks who didn't know me personally, knew of me, and knew a couple people in common, in those meetings, I didn't give the secret handshake. Okay? So I didn't start the meetings out right.
You mean
W? I don't know the secret handshake. I didn't.
You're not a 33rd degree Mason?
Look, I didn't give the secret handshake on purpose. I know the secret handshake. because it is not a meeting based on a fraternal relationship. It's a meeting based on constitutional relationship between citizens, a contract that's not about a private party. And the point is that if the predicate to a meeting to discuss these very sensitive things is based on known and trusted internally as opposed to known and trusted as a fellow citizen, then you're off to the wrong start from the outset. And if you're going to vet somebody based on whether or not you're a fraternal brother, then you have just gone down a path that ultimately is not going to save this country or save yourself. Because even those contacts, look at the the Edward Wayne Edwards case. What was the deal? He knew the secret handshake. He was murdering people right and left. And you were going to drop your guard and trust him. A lot of people did. How do you think this has gotten so off track? People drop their guard because they're known and trusted within an organization. Somebody else vetted them. That's how we've become a captured operation. And part of what, and I'll close with this because I don't want to steal away from your time.
No, that's fine. You go ahead and answer. I honor and appreciate you for what you're doing. I really do.
Part of the reason that I believe that July 4th broadcast was cut off in the way it was, and Doug knows from other things, I have the legal tender right to enter this conversation from a direction that nobody else that I know other than a handful of people have the legal tender right to enter it from. Title deed right. And I was going to address it from a direction that was completely unique. I don't think anybody has addressed it thus far, and I think that from a couple of things that happened got telegraphed. And that's why it could not be allowed to happen on that day that way. It'll happen, but it's not going to be predictable at the time that it happens. The point being here that we're a captured operation, but not just by some willy-nilly group that somehow waltzed their way into the White House. This is an extremely organized, as Kennedy said, monolithic operation.
Conspiracy, that's what he said.
It's a conspiracy of monolithic proportions, and you have to think about what monolith he's talking about. This is life and death, and you cannot underestimate the resolve, the dedication, the focus of those that are involved, and the deception that even the most honorable of them are under. A lot of these people are the salt of the earth, people that at a personal level, I would have to say, are very close brothers.
That's what I meant to convey earlier.
They are deceived.
Yes.
I don't want to say any more now. We'll save it for another day. But I accept where you're coming from on this, and I'm not pushing back at all on it. I do believe that a number of talk show people, and the only other thing I'd add, most of where the deception will come from is the more mainstream talk show people that are on the right. That's because then people will accept it as more credible. It's not going to be the fringe guys out of the edge as much.
Right.
The Doug
it's going to be the Hannity.
It's going to be more.
It's going to be Rush Limbaugh and the Hannity types. That's it. You're right.
Yes. Because otherwise it won't succeed. And then, in the course of that, if they can drag some of the rest of us in. See, that was part of the point with some of the meetings that I just had recently in some of these places over the last couple months. And the point was to try and cajole and intimidate and, frustrate me into agreeing on enough of those points that then, I go to the program and say it the correct way. And I didn't do it. And we're going to marginalize him then. Well, fucking marginalize me. I'm telling you the truth. And I'm going to stick with it. And if you got a lie that you want to tell, you tell your lie, I'll tell my truth, and we'll see which one stands a year or two from now. I'm pissed off about these people trying to take over our country and thus far succeeding.
Oh,
Wake up out there.
It's all over, but the shouting's about to begin. Where our minds collectively as a nation are so far gone, there's absolutely no way there can ever be a recovery of our collective national mindset. We're gone. It's history. All we can do now is prepare for battle. That's it. I can say that with such an affirmative stance because I've studied this for 25 years, probably as you have, but and as an ex-military officer and as a Vietnam vet and as an ex-cop and in particular a knowledgeable end-times Christian, I can tell you America's going down hard, and it's going down soon, and all you can do now is get ready because we are so discombobulated. Our minds have been taken over. Paul Harvey's utterances back in the mid-'80s when he wrote the finest work you just played, Doug and Joe and W, the finest
64.
work he ever wrote and played on the air. It was prophetic because it's now all happened. It's over. And Satan's done it. Paul Harvey, there's the rest of the story, Paul. It's over. It's all over, but the shouting is about to begin. You just keep resisting the devil. Scripture tells us to occupy until the Lord's return. Resist the evil of the devil. We're commanded to do that until we either die or the Lord takes us out, whichever comes first. That's what we are supposed to do, so you just keep doing it. The devil's going to do everything to take out your family, pit your family against you. I wish I could say from street language what the Satanists call what they're doing to our minds. They call it mind F, Okay, I wish I could say that on the air without getting everybody in trouble, but that's their game, and that Satan's doing all that, you see? He's doing it through communist uniforms. He's doing it through conservative uniforms. The Republicans, with very few exceptions, are a complete joke. They're the synthesis of the Communist Democrat Party versus the so-called former Republican Conservative Party. Now they've all been merged together. The conservatives still wear a little bit better suits, have a little nicer smile, and allege they're Christians. All of it's bullshit. Excuse me, did I say that? I'm sorry, I apologize.
Yeah.
We just keep racking up the...
There is no way there's no... Forget impeachment. I still hear Boner. I mean, is it Bomer or Boner? I still hear him say, well, we might consider impeachment, and then next week he has dinner with Obama. Obama puts his arm around him, and he says, well, we're not going to move on the impeachment thing. Listen, there have been felonies and treasonous crimes so dastardly over the last 6 years that the guy in the White House should have been brought up on criminal charges, arrested, and should be at Club Fed before being tried for serious treason. I mean, we're talking serious stuff. Oh, forget the IRS felonies. Forget the Benghazi felonies. Forget a few other thousand felonies, and so on and so on. So nobody's going to take this guy out of office because the people who put him there want him to stay, and they're going to kill or orchestrate out of the picture anybody who challenges his command. He will stay there. His job is to do what he's been assigned to do, so he's enjoying all the fruits of his evil work right now. But listen now, here's what he doesn't understand, because Satan's people are deceived. When they have been used to the maximum point by the Communist Party, who are Satanists in disguise, once their useful period is over, they're called useful idiots. Remember that phrase, useful idiots? They will be terminated. Now, I think that's coming pretty soon. And what they'll probably do is maybe somebody will attempt, it'll probably be some old white guy with a baseball cap who's probably a Russian KGB agent in disguise, and he'll be wearing an American T-shirt and waving a flag and have a L.A. Dodgers baseball hat and everything. And this operative will probably, this old white guy, so they can blame it on us, the old white middle stream Americans, the Tea Party. He'll probably help, maybe he'll have a Tea Party cap, You see? And then he will attempt to probably assassinate Obama, or maybe even be successful, but he won't be one of us. He'll be a KGB or CIA operative who will look like a Tea Party person, so that way they can blame it all on right-wing extremist Americans, those old Tea Party jerks, who Lois Lerner should have been indicted and imprisoned on instead of just, resigned, i.e. retired with full benefits, held in contempt of Congress, threatened with arrest, but nothing happens. So the whole thing is under the control of the people who want Obama to be there, who really run the world. They're in control of the New World Order, and America has to go down extremely hard, and that's called, as you know, W., that's called in military circles full spectrum dominance. Now, Hitler used a different term than full spectrum dominance. He called it a blitzkrieg. Others simply call it a surprise attack. Now, a good example of what is about to happen to America.
Shock and awe.
You took the words right out of my mouth, W. What we did to Iraq the first time under the H.W. Bush guy, the Skull and Bones Brotherhood of Death Satanist #1, New World Order, 1,000 points of light, a new age of peace and security, we will be successful, all that crap. Remember that? So what they did was full spectrum and dominance to Saddam Hussein. Remember how George Bush called him Saddam? and keep in mind, George H.W. Bush was in charge of the CIA, who armed him with all of our old tanks and military junk so that they could do that war in 1991. But that was exactly what you said. Shock and awe, that's another term to describe full spectrum dominance. And they just hammered and hammered incessantly them for how many weeks? Do you remember, Doug and W? How many weeks did we hammer those guys? Weeks.
Yeah, 6 weeks. The one thing I would add to what you're saying there, Terry, is that remember, we have things in place right now. Now, a lot of people wonder, well, when's the collapse of the dollar going to happen? When's the real estate collapse going to happen? When's the next thing going to happen? Go read your Bible. What happened with Job? While the first messenger was still speaking, the second messenger came in with the next piece of bad news. What the devil does, he gets everything, all of his ducks in a row, but he doesn't pull the switch when the first one's ready and the second one's still getting in position. He waits till everything's all ready for his own type of blitzkrieg, shock and awe, full spectrum dominance attack. So that things are in place but haven't happened yet. Well, what are we worried about? It didn't happen. It's falling off the skyscraper, and you go halfway down the skyscraper, and somebody asks you, peeks out the window, is everything okay? Yep, so far everything's okay. I'm feeling a little free fall, but it's okay so far. Well, it doesn't mean that you're not in imminent situation. The end is near, and so we have to understand what's afoot. They're getting all of the pieces in place, and the most important final piece is this design to get the world now primed and ready so that when they push the big red button, the rest of the world will be programmed responsively to say, America had it coming. Americans had it coming. Their military deserved it. They should have had it. And all of a sudden, this big bomb. Remember when 9/11 happened and people in Palestine were cheering. People in China were cheering at pictures of the buildings down like we deserved it and should have happened, etc. Imagine that on steroids with countries that you thought were your friends. Now Germany's mad at us. Our allies, other NATO partners are mad at us because we didn't go in and finish the job in Syria that they wanted us to do and had us programmed to do. And so when they push the big red button now, the way that I said it to Doug a year ago, and I said it again to Doug this morning, if you remember when we went into Bay of Pigs, and that was a covert guerrilla operation with all this training, but never, ever, ever was that band of guerrillas that we trained, freedom fighters, going to be able to dislodge Castro in Cuba. Those guerrilla fighters that were going in at the Bay of Pigs were only a primer. The intent from the very beginning was that they were going to go in, not be able to complete the job, be in trouble, be in danger of being wiped out, and then the president was going to get an emergency meeting in his office, and in walks the admiral, in walks the general, in walks the director of CIA, and they're all going to say, we have to act now or they're not going to make it. We've got to finish the job we've started. It's not, if we just have a little more help with bombing by B-52s, carpet bomb this thing here, we'll have it under control, it'll be all over in a week. And Kennedy realized the setup, realized how this was going to go completely out of control and turn into way more than he'd ever been sold on. And he was told that Eisenhower had signed off on this previously, so it was already in motion. Those people orchestrating this, the Dulles brothers and others, had it all plotted and planned out and gamed out so that Kennedy was going to be presented, this young president was going to be presented with a no-win situation except to follow the advice of these skilled masters, these knowledgeable seers who realized what the situation was in the world, and he was just going to have to go along because he's the young guy that doesn't know any better. And he didn't. So now, jump ahead to today, and imagine, had he allowed the carpet bombing and everything else and we'd have got involved in Cuba, well, who was there in Cuba? It wasn't just Castro. If you went into Cuba, you were going in nose to nose with somebody who decided to be their ally, which was the Russians. And it was going to be much bigger no matter what if you got in there. And then the Russians doubled down, and then we had the Cuban Missile Crisis, and it was going to be much bigger, bigger, bigger. Now you game forward. What happened when we didn't go into Syria? See, in this case, the president was on board with these people that had to. They had it all locked in, but Benghazi happened on the way. And Benghazi got people thinking again about what's really going on here and where does this go? And the early reporting that was done that pointed out what nobody wanted, it's just about security in a little teeny compound and it was actually an embassy, wasn't. The early reporting that was sifted into the news reports in various places had to do with the fact, hey, Benghazi's not about Benghazi, Benghazi's about Syria. Are you paying attention? It's about the gun running up to Syria. Anybody hear me out there? It's about the Ho Chi Minh Trail of gun running and fighters. Those freedom fighters aren't in Syria from Syria. Those freedom fighters are coming from North Africa and the rest of Europe. And so the point is, it was the Bay of Pigs again. Only this time, instead of the president being the one who said no, it was the American people. They had the president locked in. He was part of the conspiracy, part of the party. So now I come forward to this exact moment in time, Terry, and I say it this way, and I use the same example I used with you, Doug, last year. See, 50 years ago, it was Kennedy that was in the crosshairs because he wouldn't go along with the plan. It was all about establishing, their little directorate, their little conspiracy, their forwarding their game, their New World Order operation. So he was in the way, take him out. Who was in the way this time, and who's in the crosshairs today? We, the American people, our collective brains, our heads are in the crosshairs. It was Kennedy 50 years ago. Right now, because we wouldn't go into Syria, we wouldn't back that plan, we wouldn't go along with the New World Order's little scheme, we're in the crosshairs, and that's the danger for us as a nation. And if they succeed in taking out our methods of communication, that's the threat. We can communicate with each other. Today we can. And we can get truth. If we hadn't have been able to share the truth about the gas false flags, timely, we'd be in Syria right now if we hadn't been able to share the facts allegedly, supplied by some of the Russians. Okay, yeah, so the Russians gave us some info. The Russians weren't wrong. It was a false flag. They told us before it was going to happen. It was a false flag. And by the way, just for those that are listening, I'll say it right here and now, BS. Gaddafi didn't have VS gas. I agree. That doesn't mean there wasn't VS or VX gas in Libya. Came out of North Africa. And if you don't know what K-129 is, you need to get back and go back to the kids' table. This is the adult table. We're having a serious conversation. If you don't know that, don't even waste my time in the conversation. You're not at that level. I'm sorry, that's the way it is. Marginalize that. We are in serious, dire straits here. If they would pull the trigger then, they'll pull the trigger 100,000 times more now. Go do some study, then we'll talk. We are in serious deep shit here. Wake up. And our leaders aren't going to protect us.
You're absolutely right. Not only are they not going to protect us, they're causing it, and we are in deep stuff, and it's beyond the point of salvation. You see, in order for a nation not to fall, Scripture is correct. A divided nation falls. And so Satan's communists, his operatives, all these people under all these political labels and whatever you want to call them, CIA, KGB, communists, whatever, they're really Satanists. And Satan's job is to disembowel, dismember, and deunify the former United States of America, which made us so great under Christ. So now you get Christ out and you do everything you just described. You throw our country into total chaos. You absolutely dismember their brains to the point where they're mush and they can't think truly. They can't analyze or think critically about anything of substance. And all they can think about is Dancing with the Stars and the latest strip movie on some television satellite station. And then you have a nation totally under the control of Satan and his operatives. And the next thing is to do what Satan does best, kill, rob, and destroy. So that
well, and let me add one tiny point, and that's also for those insiders. If all they'll talk about, if all they'll acknowledge, all they'll agree to is that which is acceptable within the secret handshake community, then all they're doing is they're part of the problem because they're not doing their own critical thinking. They're not actually their own man. All they are is another link in the chain.
Well, you're so right, W. And let me point out or codify what you just say. I don't know if that's the right term or not, but codify or deeply explain concisely, very quickly, that all those secret societies of whatever variety, and there were thousands upon thousands of them, Freemasonry, this society, that society, the secret handshake group groups that you just described, they're all under the control of Satan. Lucifer's in charge of all Freemasonry at every level and all these sub-Freemasonic organizations and every other secret society. When somebody says they're a member of a secret society, well, why in the hell are they secret? Well, because they don't want to expose hell. That's why in the hell they're secret, you see? Because they don't want to expose who's really in charge of it, because in the old days that was called witchcraft, and they would have been burned at the stakes long before they had a chance to do any damage. But, of course, now they're pretty much in control. Now, what does Scripture say? Scripture says, in the last days, craft shall prosper. So, witchcraft, and what does Freemasonry call itself? The craft. You see? And who was the craftiest animal in the Garden of Eden? The snake.
And let me just add this. And David himself prayed for protection from the secret counsels of the wicked. And
that's Lucifer, Satan in control. And then you mentioned the book of Job. Now, that's interesting that one of God's finest back at that time in our early history of, humanity on Earth. Do you recall now, and I know you do, I'm just citing this for those who don't, but I'm doing it in the form of a question, but I already know, W, that you're a good Christian. You've already shared enough with me to know that, for me to know that. And so I'm going to remind you that Job was one of God's finest, and he let Satan test him to the max, beyond what any other Christian or any other man of God at any time in history, maybe even perhaps until today, could have taken and not renounced God. Okay? But what does Satan first have to do before he was able to do that? He had to go to the throne of God. He had access to the throne of God. He had to ask God for permission to test Job, didn't he? And that's what happened. You see, God gave him permission because God knew he wouldn't fail, even when everything in his life was destroyed around him. God knew his heart and knew he wouldn't fail. Now, I don't think he's going to be that lucky in this generation, because most of us, even the fine people like you and me and I, we're probably going to fail God under severe full-spectrum dominance testing that's coming just over the horizon. We're probably going to fail. I hope I can endure 1/10 of what Job went through, but I doubt it because, I'm just not Job. And the devil's going to do a job on us to the max, unlike any other time in world history. So, W, I appreciate everything you have done and you are doing. And I didn't mean to disparage you earlier. I just meant to say...
Didn't take it that way at all. Not at all.
Okay, but I meant to say that good people like you will suddenly spring up from nowhere. I mean, good people who look like you. I should say bad people who look good like you will be used by the CIA or the KGB or some other secret handshake group that you just described, whatever.
Those who are gullible to that type of enticement, encouragement, etc. That's what I understood, and that was my point in calling in. Our job within this broader community, whether it's police officers, various federal officers of different types, is to help them to think again about how they themselves can be gained in a way that is counter to their understanding basic instincts as a Christian, as a human, as a patriot, as an American. They're going to be beguiled into doing things that at some later point in time, many of them will realize, oh my gosh, I was part of the problem. They won't have done it intentionally. They just won't have seen it coming because they will have trusted the people above and around them and their judgment, because that's what they've been programmed to do. They will allow it to go further because they have a family too, they've got a retirement plan, their health care, they've got a house, and they don't want to walk away from it. So their 401k, and that's somebody else's job. That's why we elect politicians, to make these decisions.
Right.
And so they'll get along and go along to get along to go along, and at some point will have been gained so far down the path, there's no going back. And now, all of a sudden, there's someplace they would never have agreed to go except by degree.
I have a good friend who describes in a slightly different way what you just said regarding compromise. Mm-hmm. And, compromise is always started with little things. You give up a little here, and then each time you give up a little bit bigger piece, subsequently it gets easier and easier. And I have a friend who's a great big German guy, I won't mention his name, and a patriot and a Christian, and he describes it this way. He said, I just had lunch with him about a week ago, and he said, Terry, isn't it interesting that everywhere you go, people want you to compromise? He's a real estate broker, a commercial real estate broker, in everything. Lie, cheat, maneuver, twist this, twist that, bend here, bend there. And so his description, and I hope this doesn't come across too badly, but his description is everybody wants you to bend. And, Terry, you got to be a little bit flexible, but I refuse to bend over. You know what I mean? He says, I'll bend a little bit, but I refuse to bend over. So I think you get the drift of that. And that's exactly what you said in a different way. And now we're all about to be bent over for full spectrum dominance, and you know what I mean.
Well, the other thing, and it's been mentioned here on the Hagmann Show, Steve Quayle said something quite some time back that was absolutely accurate as far as I was concerned, and it stuck with me. He said before the end of America, before this is all over, Americans and the world will know all the lies, all the deceit, all the deception that have been played, all the things that our leaders have done will be laid bare and open. And I believe that's exactly right. That's what we're seeing right now. These
yes, but why? Think about that, W. Stop right there. Think about the strategy in that. Why would the Illuminati do that? Now, here's the plan, okay? Here's the plan. Russia is now being made to look as if it's better than us, as if they're the Messiah that's going to save us from Obama. Isn't that what you're beginning to see on the news media? You see, because the final plan is to make, as you said so eloquently earlier, is to make America look bad, even to Soviet Russia, who's always known we're bad, because we're capitalists, or have been, not any longer. We're socialists now, but they are part capitalist now. They are socialist capitalists. China is socialist capitalist, and now they're using our own strength, our own money, and our own technology against us to conquer us. So now, here's what you're going to see in the news media. You're beginning to see it now. Obama will look more and more like our enemy, which is part of the strategy, and Putin, one of the most evil jerks who's ever walked the planet, who enjoyed impaling people through the anus when he was a KGB officer in order to torture them into submission. Now he's a Satanist, head of the KGB and the Central Committee, and now the script is to make Obama look like the bad guy he is, but he's being orchestrated, he's a puppet, and then Putin will look like the Messiah. And that's when they will conquer us and probably have the KGB or the CIA Tea Party guy I described earlier take out Obama. You see? Because
the one thing I would add in that context is, do you remember when Clinton commented on the carpet when all the presidents were present in the Oval Office here a couple of years back, and they're all looking down at the carpet, talking, and Clinton looks down at the carpet.
Yes.
And he comments he always loved that carpet. What is it about that carpet that he loved? What's the hidden message that he's referring to in that carpet? Well, that carpet has 44 rays of light spreading out. And those 44 rays of light, what are we on right now? 44th president?
I see. Gotcha.
And so is there a hidden message about this? It has been asserted by people at various times that the plan always was that there was an end of presidents, and that
yes.
was the, moment when we switched to this New World Order, and that America, as Doug has talked about and others, is like the Titanic. It's a straw man. It was designed to sink. The myth was concocted intentionally to suck everybody in to believe that they were safe on the Titanic, the unsinkable ship, couldn't possibly go. But it was designed with a destiny of destruction without enough lifeboats from the very outset. So is America designed for this moment of destruction so somebody can walk into the void after the fact? And see, most people are thinking the New World Order, we're going to fight them. They're going to try and take over. We're going to fight them. No, we're not. They're going to walk into a vacuum. All the world has bought into this titanic operation, this titanic monetary system, this titanic political system, that now, once they're all there, it gets sunk. Well, who's going to keep things going? How are we going to make this function? Those enlightened masters walk into the void and bring order back out of the disorder. Russia itself, in a biblical perspective, also is destroyed. And I remember a conversation that I had at a very young age with, I call them the old elephants, the old bulls, that were all the way back to World War II. And one of the things that was the most shocking to me, and I heard it several times, but I heard it at a very early age, was, no, we're designed to eventually meld together with Russia. That's the ultimate point.
Yeah,
will be, and that's the point. And so all of this stuff, for all that we're in this, war, look at the space program, look at the military. Best enemy money can buy.
Oh,
Why?
You read his book. You read his book.
That's right. The best enemy money can buy, because that allows us in that competition to be at the top of the heap. And we both become actually closer to being the same, not further apart in the competition. And that's what's happened here. And so now, here at the end of this game, Russia doesn't make it through this either. They're on the ropes. They're in dire shape. So we both take each other out. Who walks into the void across the whole world? And what's that void look like? These enlightened masters who are orchestrating this on all sides so they can get a new world order, not a new Eastern order, not a new Western order, not a new Southern order, a new world order. They need all the systems to come down, because in the past, it was about Rome falling or Greece falling or England falling. This is about all the control centers allegedly believed to have collapsed, and then these enlightened masters to come in and take control of the situation and bring us back on an even keel and bring order out of the disorder for the whole world.
The phoenix bird rises up from the ashes of the old. Mr. W., it's been a pleasure. I'm telling you, you're a very astute individual. You're very articulate, very intelligent, and I'm glad to have had this opportunity to meet you over the air. And
I apologize for glomming into the show. I figured I was more concerned about the audience.
No, don't apologize. I really enjoyed it. And Doug really respects you and likes you, and I've read a lot of your material over the last few months, so I'm really honored to have met you. And again, I did not mean to disparage you personally. I just meant bad people that will be looking.
We're going to get gamed. Everybody needs their ears on and their eyes open, and they cannot allow that we easily fall into whatever the game is. And I don't care if it's from you or I or others. We, as Paul said, if I come preaching another gospel, if you hear something allegedly from one of us and it's portrayed a certain way, test it in your spirits with God, the real true test by the Holy Spirit, and against God's word. And don't take any man's word at all. That's how come you end up with a pope saying it's okay to marry your brother.
And also he said
or
it's
you're
okay.
an alien or whatever.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. He said the Space Brothers can be saved. Now, come on, they're all demons. And then it's okay for Islam to join the church, too. And so you're exactly correct. Now, what did Jesus say about truth? Well, remember when he was before Pilate, and Pilate was quizzing him, and Pilate's wife didn't want Pilate to do anything bad with Jesus. Listen, she wasn't that dumb. She was advising Pilate not to do it, and he eventually washed his hands, I think primarily influenced by his wife's contribution to the trial. But Jesus was asked about truth. Remember that discussion Pilate had with Jesus about the truth. And what did Pilate say? Well, he was cynical about the truth because he was a military politician. Let's face it, to become a top commander in any military, even back in Rome, you had to be a strategic politician as well as a military commander. Otherwise, you don't say the right things, you don't do the right things, you never get promoted to such a position. So, Pilate was quite cynical about the truth because he hadn't heard much, if any, ever in his life, especially within the Roman Empire. And so they got into this little discussion about truth, and so Jesus said the truth, and his reaction was as follows, something to this effect. I don't recall the exact language of the scripture, but he says, "Ha ha ha ha, truth? What's that?" And of course, Jesus said, "I am the truth. I am the light." And that's the same thing God told Moses up on the mountain when Moses asked him for his name. Remember that? Well, he didn't respond with El Shaddai or any other name. He just said, "I am." And what Jesus said when the soldiers picked him up and they said, "Are you Jesus?" And he said, "I am." And few people remember that what happened after that in Scripture says at that moment when he said he was I am, in other words, when he said he was God, the great I am, all the people who came to get him, all the soldiers, everybody around him, were forced spiritually to the ground by some magnetic or gravitational pull. They immediately went face down on the dirt. And that was so that God could show them that only with his permission would his one and only begotten Son who came to save us and had to die for us be taken away. See, but as soon as Jesus said, "I am," he was God in the flesh, everybody hit the dirt. And then they were released, and they took Jesus to the cross, but after they nearly beat him to death. So Jesus is the truth. And then John, it says, the truth shall set you free. Now, many people today quote that scripture without even knowing they're quoting the Bible. I hear secular people all the time alleging to be conservatives, and they say, the truth will set you free. Well,
it's on the wall as you enter the building.
Yeah, right. But the real meaning of that was Jesus said in John, "I am the way, I am the truth, and that truth shall set you free." So you see, yes, we're all searching for truth, but the only real truth and the bottom line on what the truth is God and Christ. And only belief in Christ can set you free. Knowing the truth, and the truth setting you free, is knowing Jesus, who is the only truth in the universe because he's God. So knowing the truth, i.e., knowing Jesus, and that only, and he only will set you free. And by that you shall be saved. John 3:16. For God so loved the world that, you know the rest of the drill, you've seen it on every baseball court. Well, you don't see it anymore. It's almost illegal now. But for God so loved the world that he gave his one and only begotten Son, so that whosoever would believe in him shall be saved. In other words, you shall know that truth, that Jesus is God, he came to save us, and simply believing, genuinely believing in him is enough for God to wash you of your sins, put everything you've done, including everything I've done, good and bad, on the altar of Christ's blood, and that sets us free. That's the only thing, and he's the only person in the universe that sets us free. So knowing the truth, which is Jesus, shall set us free. That's the bottom line.
Amen.
Gentlemen,
I'll
thank
free
you so
you guys
much.
up. I appreciate you letting me dive in there for a minute, and sorry I took so much of it.
No, this is good. I mean, I think I'll tell you, I learned quite a bit tonight listening to the both of you. I really did. Terry, I learned a lot about you, and W, I learned more from you. So it's all good as far as I'm concerned.
Well, remember
Terry?
what Reagan told Nancy?
Yep.
When she asked him what happened. Remember what he said? Honey, I forgot to duck.
I forgot that.
We're in the
stuff,
crawl phase. Come on, people, duck.
Yeah, right. I remember that.
We are entering into Dealey Plaza, and I've got a splitting headache. Yeah.
Well, listen, Doug, you're going to have to. I hope you don't have to bite the bullet. You know.
Yeah.
I hope none of us have to bite the bullet, but
absolutely.
It's
all right. All right, going to go cut your loose, W. God bless, man. Thank you, Terry. Very interesting. You know, you Terry. I got to say, you've got a very interesting way about you, and I love the candid nature that you exhibit. And folks, Terry Cook is a fantastic author, and he's got a lot of great books out there on Amazon. I got to tell you something. Beast Tech is just a fantastic resource of information, and I'm glad we had this discussion. Obviously this was not scripted, obviously, but what do you think? What are your closing thoughts about this? You didn't feel ambushed. I hope you didn't feel ambushed.
Gosh, no. Oh, no, gosh, no. I really enjoyed it, Doug. I listen. I love you, brother. I love Joe, and I know you guys are 150% for real. And so am I, and so is Sheila, and all the guests you have on. And now I've met W, and I respect the man very, very highly. He's a fine man. And so, no way in God's earth did I ever feel ambushed. No, I enjoy this kind of impromptu exchange. And, occasionally I'll still do a program with Dr. Stan Monteith. Are you familiar with Stan Monteith?
Oh, yeah.
I did my first radio show with him, Doug, in 1993 when he first started as a retired surgeon from Santa Clara, California. And he married his surgery nurse, and I'm doing a program with him tonight. You know why? I told you I've retired, and I have. But Stan is dying of cancer. Pray for
I didn't know that.
Okay? Yes.
I didn't know Stan. Okay.
Yes, and he's in serious chemotherapy. He's 80-something. And the only reason I do regular programming with him is because I just love that brother, all to heaven. And he asked me if I would fill in occasionally because I'm fairly knowledgeable about things, and I don't need a script, and I don't read a script. And I can speak for 6 solid hours without shutting my mouth, and my wife tells me to do that occasionally. So Stan knows that he can call me when he gets a canceled guest. And he just called me yesterday. He said, I had a guy call in sick. He can't do the program. Can you do the 9 p.m. show West Coast time tomorrow night, which is tonight? And I said, yes, Stan, I will. He said, what do you want to talk about? I said, you name it, we'll go. See, he knows I can fill in like that, and that's why he calls upon me about every week or two. And I'm still doing those kinds of last-minute calls with Stan Monteith because I love the guy, and he's not going to be with us much longer, and I just want to help him out. But we're doing a program tonight in about 2 hours from now.
Okay.
For about an hour, and we're talking about pretty much the same thing.
Okay. Now, for the listening audience who wants to tune in at midnight Eastern time, that's Dr. Stan Monteith. Where can they find you tonight at midnight?
He's international, and I think they can just go to Dr. Stan Monteith's Liberty Radio website.
Okay.
Just go to Stan Monteith Liberty Radio website, and they can pull up the programming. But he's on hundreds of stations internationally in Australia and everything. So I wouldn't be able to tell you nationwide which specific programs I'll be on. But in about 2 hours, I will be on live with Dr. Stan Monteith internationally in 2 hours. It's now 7 o'clock West Coast time. That's 9 o'clock West Coast time, which is 3 hours later where you are.
Well, I got to tell you, Terry, I got to buy you a cup of coffee. If I could buy you a cup of coffee right now, I would, because you're gonna need it for the putting in overtime tonight. My friend, God bless you. What a fantastic revelatory program. At least in my view, it was revelatory, and you really made some very, very good points, and I want to thank you for doing so. And I want to thank you for fighting the good fight.
Thank you, my friend. And Joe, I love you, brother, and
love you too, Terry.
Hang in there. Hang in there, because I'm telling you, we're all just beginning to see what's going to happen to the conservatives who are out there fighting against Satan's forces. And he's coming at us from every conceivable angle, and each of us has our own battle right now. Trust me, I have mine. Oh, yeah, I don't even want to share them with you. You have your own. You don't want to hear mine either. So all of us who are fighting the good fight against Satan's forces, and we've talked about quite a few of them tonight in every form and manner, we're all going to be bombarded and shot at figuratively and literally in all respects here in the very near future. So I'll be praying for you, Doug. And Joe, I love you guys. And if you run into a pinch and somebody gets sick and you need somebody to fill in, I'll be happy to do that. I just don't want to do any regular scheduled programming anymore because I don't think it's doing much good. I hope it does. I don't think so. America's about to be taken down hard, and also I'm trying to do a little business work. I'm doing good things with small businesses that are struggling, and I'm trying to help them make it through some tough times. So, and I make a little money doing that. So I'm still doing good things, but I make a better living doing that than ministry work where I went broke.
No, I get that, my brother. But thanks for the offer. Look, we just might take you up on that sometime. Give you a call and say, hey, can you do our program tonight? That would be fabulous. You would be a fantastic addition. Let me tell you, just a fantastic addition. God bless you.
I love you guys. Joe, keep
your
chin up,
too, brother.
okay? I understand. Keep your chin up. I've been there. Okay.
All right.
Take care, Terry.
All right. You guys take care. God bless you, and pray for the Lord to return soon. I don't know if there's going to be a rapture or not. I'm kind of a mid-tribber, but just the same, I shave my head so that I'm aerodynamic. If the call happens, the trumpet blows, and we go up in the twinkling of an eye. Now, Doug, consider this. People go up in one twinkling of an eye if the horn blasts, 1 Thessalonians 4. If that happens, and it's I don't know. If it's mid, I don't know. But whenever it happens, you got to be bald because you have to be aerodynamic in order to go up that doggone fast. You know, I mean, the twinkling of an eye, if you go all the way to heaven, that's Mach 80 or Mach 3000 or something. You better have the hair off your head because hair causes aerodynamic drag. You know that, don't you?
Oh, my goodness.
Now, you guys will still go up. You still will go up, but you will go up in two twinklings of an eye due to the aerodynamic drag.
Oh, goodness. God bless you, my friend. You have a good night. We're up against the hard break. God bless.
Love
Folks,
you.
That was Terry Cook. Terry Cook, wonderful man, author of, he said 17 books, former Los Angeles Sheriff's Department investigator, very knowledgeable.
With that, we're going to go to the top of the hour break. The guest for the next hour is Blaine Cooper. Blaine Cooper called out John McCain for being a treasonous senator, and we have the audio clip that we'll play for those of you who did not hear it. And we're going to be joined with him in the next hour after this break, so stay with us. You're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann. I'm into hour number 3 of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report on this Wednesday, August 6, 2014. If you joined us late, we had Terry Cook on, author of Beast Tech, prolific speaker and writer. Was a special treat to have him on tonight, and that was a great first 2 hours. So if you did not get a chance to listen, definitely go back and listen to the archive. Coming up, we're waiting for our next guest, Mr. Blaine Cooper. I'm going to play the audio of what Mr. Cooper did and said to John McCain. Some of you might remember this. I've heard it before. But here, it's a 4-minute audio. Here is the clip of Mr. Blaine Cooper confronting John McCain, calling him for what he is, a treasonous enemy of the state.
Certainly is.
Where do you come off?
Hi, Mr. McCain. I mean this with all due respect, sir, as an elected official for our country. We, the people, elected you to be representative of the people and against this and for this great nation. But for far too long now, and the rest of Congress, including the executive branch of government, along with the judicial and legislative, have turned your back on the American people and their core values and principles. I can say with great confidence and speak on behalf of all Americans that your actions against this country are treasonous. All of you against the will of the American people, have aided and abetted the enemy. You and the rest of Congress, including the President of the United States, have went against the will of your people in Syria, regardless of your position and vote, whether it is a yes or no, is still a political smokescreen. I believe wholeheartedly you do not care about the will and well-being of America or its people. You lied to the American people about the chemical attacks in Syria. The American people know that it was our government that is most likely responsible. There is strong evidence, including video, that these attacks were carried out by Al-Qaeda, and you advocate starting a war, even maybe world war, by taking the same attack and blaming it on Assad. President Barack Hussein Obama has been supporting terrorism. The United States has been funding and aiding organizations, including the Muslim Brotherhood and Al-Qaeda, for many years now. The same enemy we're supposed to be defeating on the battlefield. At least one country in this world stood up against this government terrorism that you guys support in Egypt, the people of Egypt throughout Mohammed Morsi, which Obama supported as well, as countless Christians have lost their lives under evil people such as this. You swore an oath to protect us and protect from all enemies, both foreign and domestic. The simple irony is the domestic enemy now in this country is the people and government of the United States. And McCain and you and the rest of our leaders are accountable for their actions. It's too bad someone like me is not in office to hold you accountable, because if I was in a position of power or authority, I would have you all arrested and tried for treason against my country under the grounds of 18 U.S.C. 2381 Treason U.S. Code. Whoever owing allegiance to the United States levies war against them or adheres to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort within the United States or elsewhere, is guilty of treason. That is the code. The American people are sick of it. This country rose up against you recently. The ratio, hang on, I have a right of free speech, I can finish. The American people opposed to going to war with Syria, which includes many Marines and other veterans by the thousands, was 499 to 1. That is 99% of the people of this country. So if you and the rest of this government are truly for the American people and representatives of us, I suggest this time you listen, because nobody wants another war or strike in Syria or anywhere else. Bring our brothers and sisters home. I am truly disgusted that you people are my leaders.
Well, sir, I look forward to you running for office. Nobody's preventing you from that, even in this treasonous country. Register, I don't know if you're a registered voter or not, and run for office, and we'll be glad to put you to up for the voters and have their opinion. I put myself up the voters now 8 times, and except for deviation on the way to the White House, they have approved of my performance, and I understand that there's a great deal of controversy about some issues. But honestly, sir, when you say that we are guilty of treason, that is something that, frankly, I can't dignify with a response. I can't respond to a charge like that because it would be beneath me.
That was Blaine Cooper talking to John McCain. Really interesting that was a town hall meeting, and of course, the information there, or the what Blaine Cooper did was called McCain out on the carpet. And it's interesting if you look at the video as opposed to just listening to it. But if you look at the video, if you watch McCain's body language, it's really interesting how he it's almost as if McCain is on a massive defensive where he can't even look Mr. Cooper in the eye, number one. And number two, it appeared as if McCain was almost resigned to the fact that he could not directly answer to the charges, in which case he says, I'm not going to dignify that with an answer. Of course, that to me is an interesting way of handling that type of that type of an address. Now, with that, we've got Mr. Blaine Cooper on. Again, Mr. Blaine Cooper is the Marine who talked to Senator John McCain at that meeting, which you just heard. Mr. Cooper, welcome to the Hagmann Hagmann Report.
Hey, thank you, sir. Just for the record, I did not serve in the Marine Corps. Somebody had uploaded that YouTube video and titled it Marine. So I had Marines from all over the country telling me Semper Fi, and I'm like, I never served. I tried to tell as many people as I could, but they still keep calling me a Marine. Now, my dad was in the Marine Corps, and both my parents are also veteran police officers for the city of Phoenix, but I myself, I never served on the police department or in any military. So,
well, thank you for your candor about that. Regardless, I mean, thank you for clearing that up. So we will stop referring to you as a Marine. But regardless, that took a lot of chutzpah, a lot of guts to get up there and to do what you did. When was that?
That was, I think, last year around September or October, somewhere in that area. I don't remember the exact day now. I've kind of forgotten about it. But actually, a week before I went and confronted him, I got interrogated by the FBI for a Facebook comment. So they've the government's really been trying to find a way to just throw me in a federal prison because I'm so outspoken. I'm the type of guy, if I know something's true and I have facts to back it up, and I will expose every bit of them. I have no respect for any politician in this country anymore. They don't serve people. So. No, and that's I totally agree with you with respect to the politicians. It seems like they are as I've often stated, the America I probably
has
shouldn't stereotype say all of them, but a good portion of them. I feel like I'm in a two-party dictatorship. Everything they do to take away the freedom of the American people and not give it into the hands of the people. And it's kind of our fault as the American citizens. We allowed this by giving them all their power and saying, here, protect us, here, we're going to go ahead and sacrifice our freedom for security, and now we deserve neither and we're losing both. Exactly what Benjamin Franklin told us not to do.
Precisely. We are really in some serious situations here right now in this country. Blaine, before you go any further, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Give us some background and tell the audience a little about yourself.
The background on me prior to all this, the things that God has used me for recently, like the Bundy Ranch, John McCain, the FBI coming and interrogating me, and being a voice in the public. Before that, I'm really no one special. I'm no different than anybody else. I'm not rich. Me and my wife, actually, we have to get food boxes to survive with our kids. Otherwise, we won't be able to eat. But, I'm fine with that. That doesn't bother me. So we're happy. We love what we got. We love our children, and we're just trying to do what we can to, get our freedom back for the people of this country. That's what I would like to do. So I saw the problem, and I said, if nobody else is going to speak out, I suppose I will. So I'm pretty much the most unlikely person you would ever expect to rise up and do something like this, because I'm not qualified. I don't get paid to be a public speaker. I don't get paid to do this stuff. It's not about money, but it's about truth. It's about honor. It's about respect. And it's about integrity. A few of the morals and values that our politicians should look in the mirror and recite until they actually get it and learn the definitions of them.
Gotcha.
So that's basically me. I went to school to be a wildland firefighter, and I never became a wildland firefighter. Matter of fact, now I'm against the BLM with the Bundy Ranch thing. So I never went in and finished my courses. Once I found out what was going on with them, the wildland firefighting obviously is different from the BLM, but I just didn't want to be a part of that because of that situation. And God bless our firefighters, by the way. So,
totally understood. Yeah. Now, do you have a website or a YouTube channel or an account where we can follow your activities?
Yeah, I got a Facebook. It's just Blaine Cooper. You'll notice me. I actually that's probably another reason why people thought I was a Marine or something. I'm an avid bodybuilder and weightlifter, and I train actively every day. So my dad had bought me a Marine Corps hat for my birthday, so I got this little blue Marine Corps hat I wear a lot. But so if you put my name in there on Facebook, you'll see that picture with the blue Marine Corps hat. That's me. And then I do work with Thomas Lacavera for ResurrectTheRepublic.com. We don't always agree on things, but we work together quite nice. And then I have a YouTube channel, just Blaine Cooper.
Blaine Cooper, okay. I got to ask you, what was the response? Now, the audience heard the audio of your exchange with McCain. What happened? What didn't we see take place?
There really wasn't much more to it. There was probably I think they cut off maybe a few seconds, but he boasted about how he's been elected by voters 8 times, and I should run for office, and nobody's stopping you from running in this treasonous country. And I was like, oh, well, thanks for letting everybody know what I said was true.
Yeah.
And I was like, which is ridiculous because, if you ever notice, like any politician now, they got bankers and corporations in their back pocket like it's bubblegum drops. It's absolutely ridiculous. I don't understand why the American people aren't funding their candidates, and it's these huge multi-million-dollar corporations. And the banks are so in bed with the politicians, it's insane. And so I don't know how you expect me to even begin to try to run for a presidency or for a governor position. I don't want to be a politician. Just like I'm kind of like like George Washington. George Washington didn't want to be president. He didn't want it.
No, of course not.
I don't want it either. I don't want to have to deal with it. It shouldn't be. I don't want that responsibility. The people. It's like we elected you. You're supposed to be taking the responsibility, putting a stop to this, doing something about it, and you don't. So why are you trying to say? When he said that, it was kind of like you're missing the whole point. You're the representative, not me. So why do I have to run to do your job?
Precisely. Yeah, and I think you did a very fine job with what you said, and his response was interesting. I got to tell you, the way his body language, to watch the video versus listening to the audio is a big difference. So,
right.
I think, you had. I mean, he looked kind of almost defeated in a sense, but resigned. But you've done a lot more things.
The thing to think about it is, this is how we should be confronting our leaders. We're not bold like we used to be. We go in there. I mean, you can be respectful to your leader and still drill, or your elected official, and still drill him on the issues and be like, why are you doing this? Why are you funding terrorism around the world? That's what I would like to ask every politician. Well, what's in it for you? If you notice, every country we go in, it's all about resources and oil. It's ridiculous. And now as a result of their policies, they got over 100,000 Christians being slaughtered through these countries a year. Thank God places like Egypt are finally getting it. I mean, the Egypt is standing up for Israel now. It's amazing. So if the rest of the world gets it, why can't the American people go, hey, you know what, we should probably do something about this. People should have a problem with this because I don't want there was Marines messaging me saying, well, I don't want to go fight a war for Al-Qaeda because that's who was in Syria.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I commend you on the way you spoke up against John McCain. I wish I had an opportunity to do that. We see the double talk, the manipulation. One day he's going over there to fund Al Qaeda, to hand them weapons, kind of like a flashback as a Big New Brzezinski with Bin Laden, and we're seeing it happen again. And the outcome today is just horrific. And to see the Christians being slaughtered in Iraq and Libya, all across throughout these Arab Springs, from the Arab Spring, it is just unnecessary and could have been completely avoided. Yeah, it is horrific.
It's
You're
completely
right.
backwards of how we're supposed to be. It just doesn't even make any sense. And you know what? If the American government wasn't funding it, it probably wouldn't happen. They wouldn't have the money to carry out their evil plots against the entire world to make Islam dominate everybody.
Interesting how you said that. How you put that together. Yes.
So,
and as you said, we see a coalition of Arab leaders and nations standing up against Hamas now, which is something new. And there's so much here in the media. I have a clip we haven't played on our show yet, but MSNBC host Joy Reid says Israel inflicted the equivalent of 100 9/11s in Gaza. And we see this sentiment throughout the world today. An article today, anti-Semitism flares up throughout the world. But we see there is this coalition of people willing to come together who want some sort of peace. And we know that true peace won't be brought until the Lord comes back. But we have to do our best to live together while we're here.
Yeah, I got a lot of anti-Semitism on my page. I don't even know where it came from. Because there's some people who say, oh, Israel carried out 9/11 and blah, blah, blah. Israel sponsors Hamas. And I'm willing to bet because Hamas's weapons have English on them. Where do you think they got the weapons? They got them from America.
Well, America and Western intelligence, NATO, yes, exactly. You're exactly right.
How else are you going to get weapons with English on them? It wasn't Hebrew. It was... So I think Israel's innocent in all this. I think Benjamin Netanyahu, or I can't say his last name very well, but I think he doesn't realize what's really going on. That America is actually arming the terrorists to surround Israel. And they're totally oblivious to it because they don't want to believe that, because Obama always comes out in his speeches, our relationships have never been stronger with Israel. Bull crap. Tell me another story. At least be honest with what you're doing.
But you don't think that's just diplomacy for the masses, as opposed to the back room, the real Netanyahu saying, "Oh my gosh, I mean, Obama is a Sunni Muslim."
Yeah, it could be
basically.
political. He could be behind the scenes going like, "I cannot believe the people were dumb enough to elect a guy like this into office." But it wasn't just him. I mean, we've been having the sponsoring of terrorism for a long time now. Al-Qaeda in the 1980s through the CIA. Unreal. It's just unreal. And if there was a president, if the government was really against and for fighting a war on terror, why wasn't there an executive order ending all foreign aid to Arab countries?
It's a good point.
Why not? Why not? You don't want Al Qaeda and all these guys to have the weapons? Make an executive order for no funding to any organization in the Arab nation.
Well, that would cut off.
It's the same reason that we see on 9/11, most of the alleged hijackers were Saudi Arabian. Yeah, they said that most of the alleged hijackers were Saudi Arabian, or 15 out of the 19, but yet you go to war with Iraq and Afghanistan. I mean,
it doesn't make any sense. And the first thing they did in Afghanistan was secure the poppy seed fields. Now, why would anybody do that? Well, Prozac, lithium, clonidine, Klonopin, Tegretol, you name it. All the pharmaceuticals and drugs that people are being poisoned every year in America, they need to fund that. They need the resources for it. America is so dependent on foreign oil and foreign interests that they kind of have no choice but to go to war with everybody because they'll collapse, because they don't produce anything here. They ran all the companies out of America. Our corporate income tax rate is the highest in the freaking world. Who would build a business here? Anybody in their right mind who would build a business here? So
it's difficult at best. Impossible. It's becoming increasingly impossible. I got a question for you, Blaine. While we're on the topic, or kind of still not too far away from the topic of your meeting with McCain there, Becky from Aurora, Colorado, wants to know what the crowd. She said it looked like in her email, she said it looked like a very unfriendly crowd for you. What was the crowd's reaction?
There was a lot of people who agreed. The police officers afterwards shook my hand. I couldn't believe I didn't get tased. Because you see that a lot now with people confronting their leaders. And there was a guy that got arrested not too long ago for going over his 3-minute mark at a town hall meeting, and they charged him with a felony.
That's Billy Bear. He's been on our program, yeah. Yeah,
it's unreal what's going on. But you know what? You have a corrupt president, you're going to have a corrupt government. That trickles down. Evil is evil, and it even says that in the Bible. It talks about if you have a corrupt leader, everything's corrupt. But anyway, yeah, so I was there, and I couldn't believe how many, because people think John McCain to be this huge war hero and POW and blah, blah, blah. I wonder if anybody's ever heard about Songbird McCain, and when he was in the Vietnamese camps, I guess a bunch of vets that were there in the camp went and confronted him because he was given the positions and getting Americans killed. He was given the information to the Vietnamese.
Yeah, I've heard that. And now, I'm not sure. Have you been able to confirm that through reliable, authenticated sources on that? I mean,
no, I haven't. There's a lot of things on YouTube about it. Obviously, if I knew the guys and I knew how to get a hold of them and talk to them and see their side of the story to where I could film it and put it on my wall, I would. Because in this country, it seems we're always trying to look to this one person to change the world for us. And one of these days, that's going to be the Antichrist, and he ain't going to like it. Look at what's going on right now, for crying out loud. We used to be able to group together, unite, and handle the problems ourselves. But we've given all this power and control for somebody to fix it all for us, and we don't want to take the responsibility for it anymore. And look what happens. It ends up in a black abyss of corruption.
You're exactly right.
There's no accountability.
No,
if I did half of the things these politicians do, I'd be sitting in jail or be on death row.
Very true. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to have you on. You know, you represent, at least to me, the younger generation, the activists, the white hat activists, if you will. Now, please don't take any disrespect from that, because I mean none. I look at you as being somebody who cares, and not just cares, but you push away from your keyboard and you go out there and you do stuff. But we don't have anybody. We don't have people like you doing stuff. What's going on with that?
That's it. I mean, a lot of us are fed up, and a lot of us are having a lot of mouth and keyboard wars. The point is, you have to get there and make a stand. You know, it's just kind of like all these protests, you know, that people do. They're in so much fear now they don't even want to go in and protest. I feel horrible that people have to live under that kind of fear, because you shouldn't be afraid of your government. Remember what our founding fathers said: if you fear your government, there is tyranny. Well, that's tyranny. If you're so afraid that you can't go down there and confront a leader because you're afraid what's going to happen to you, there's a problem, a huge problem. Because that's what made this country great, is we could stand up. We have a right of freedom of speech and to voice our opinion. We had a Second Amendment to defend ourselves against these tyrants and thugs that keep wanting to oppress us. But the minute you try to mention any kind of armed revolution or going to Washington, and if I had it my way, I'd take 100 million gun owners to D.C., snatch Obama up in some nice cold handcuffs and make him stand trial. And then I would clean out of all of Congress. But then people are like, oh, well, you're an extremist, and it's against the law to take a gun in there. I'm sorry. Doesn't the Constitution say shall not be infringed? What part of that do people not understand? The Declaration of Independence classifies it as an inalienable right, not a privilege, a right, meaning nobody can take away my right to defend myself. And at the time they wrote the Constitution, everything was a military weapon.
That's
now
true.
you can't own anything anymore. The federal government is so powerful that they could throw a missile through my front door. I don't like that. I don't think they should have that kind of power.
Just the way you said
know what
that
they're going to
cracked me
do
up.
with it? They're going to slaughter people with it.
Exactly.
Power corrupts, and absolute power will corrupt absolutely. So I want to know why every president and every person we elect in the office is not doing anything to defund this crap and give the power back into the hands of the citizens where it belongs.
But Blaine, you don't have to answer this question, but let me ask it anyway. And again, feel free not to answer it. Can I ask your age, roughly?
34, sir.
Okay, 34. It does my heart good to know that we've got men of your age, capable, well able, video-wise. I mean, looking at you, you're in good shape. You certainly can handle your own, and you're on our side, meaning the side of good righteousness and for the Constitution. So it does my heart good to know that we've got you and people like you in our corner. But are you hopeful, Blaine, that are you surrounded by like-minded people, or are you up against the wall and trying to convince a bunch of mind-numb people like the rest of us?
I don't know. It's like a 50-50 with me right now. I'm hopeful, but then I'm not. The reason I'm not hopeful is the hate against Israel, because the Bible says when that happens, that's not good. It's the Holy Land. In Revelations, it says the saints are going to go ride down on white horses and reign there with Christ for 1,000 years. So these people don't realize that if you do not put God in this, if you try to do it any other way but God's way, it's going to be a disaster. And that right there, if they don't put God first, what hope can you have?
It's a very good point.
He's the only one that has strength and power to change everything. He says it says God even guides the most evil king in the world. He guides his heart like a river. So even when they're bad, God's still in control.
Boy, I love your passion.
So that makes me hopeful there, because I know God's still in control. God still has the power. And God could flip this around in a minute if people would just say, you know what, let's rely on God. But that's action too. See, people, a lot of Christians are kind of like, well, we're not supposed to do anything. We just got to be peaceful and blah 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 blah. Oh, really? So you're talking about like the 40% of Christians there in the Egyptian movement, where they had 38 million people throw out an evil dictator, was Christians. You know, Christians have a right to stand up. And if they don't stand up against injustice, they're just as guilty as the people who are unjust. We have a responsibility and obligation to stand against, especially this kind of evil. This is a whole new level of evil. I mean, we got our own resources, our own federal government oppressing their own citizens. The resources aren't being used for terrorists. Shoot, the American government's busting in illegals by the millions a day. What do you think's going to happen? That's slavery. We're going to be enslaved if that keeps up. If you don't protect your borders, it always ends up in slavery.
Right. Now, you're down there in Arizona. Are you near the border? You had boots on the ground down there at the border,
yes,
didn't
sir.
you?
We traveled the whole border for about a month. We went from Sassabee, Arizona to Sierra Vista. We went to Texas. Texas is a strange place. You always hear all this hype about Texas and how, they're gun happy, and out here in Texas, we're Texans, and it has like some of the worst gun laws I've ever seen in my life. Except for, you can carry your long guns around there, but like here in Arizona, you can carry whatever you want. You can carry concealed, you can carry open. It don't matter. There is no law. You don't even need a permit to carry concealed here, and they're really funny. You can't even have it in your car in Texas. It has to be in a trunk in a box.
I didn't realize that.
I was like, I thought this was Texas. Texas is like Texas. It seems like, in the El Paso area anyway, it seems like it's went ultra-liberal. We were down there on a ranch there protecting a homeowner's wife because she's 80 yards from a Juarez cartel-controlled city. So they come through her property all the time. They're not kids. and they're not families. They're narco-drug cartels. We got them on video doing a drug deal in front of Border Patrol on the American side, right in front of her house, and they drove by 13 times and did nothing. She was on the phone with them. They're right there. They're right there. They just kept driving by. And I thought, okay, so what, is Border Patrol being paid off by the cartel? But also I found out, here's how it works in Texas. If they were to break into her house and try to rape her, and she shot them, she said that the sheriff's deputies told her that they would arrest her.
Huh?
Yeah, that's what I said. You say, I'm saying you don't have the right to protect yourself if somebody comes in here and tries to harm you? Nope. They said she goes. I would shoot him, but I'd probably have to get an attorney and I'd be in jail. And I was like, what? It should be automatic.
Can't sue. I'm going to tell you, Blaine.
They have more rights than we do.
Oh man, that's in Texas.
Check this out. The sheriff's deputies, they won't make arrest, and the DA won't bring up charges. They turn them over to Border Patrol. They get an $1,800 check. They send them back to Mexico. They come back and do it again.
You've got this you've got videotape of what you're saying too as well,
oh,
right?
Yeah. Yeah, we got her on video. She did a little interview with us and told us about it. Obviously, she didn't say anything about the DA on camera. She's afraid for her life. She's afraid they're going to kill her or imprison her if she says anything.
You got to be afraid of the bad and the good guys, is what you're saying. Sounds like, right?
She's afraid of the cartels. She's afraid of her own government because she's like they don't stand for the people. When we were there, nobody came over because we told them, said if an illegal comes in here, if they come in here armed, we will shoot them. See, the Border Patrol can't do that because they're told to stand down. They're told not to return fire. They're told not to do anything. So, matter of fact, there was a sheriff in Ohio who arrested a narco-drug cartel, imprisoned him, and sent the president, this is great, here you'll love this, he sent the president of Mexico the bill. He had his life threatened, and President Obama sued him. Really? President Obama sued our own sheriff for arresting a narco-drug dealer who wanted to kill people.
On what grounds?
I don't know, on grounds that I guess because he's an illegal alien, he has more rights than us. I don't know. But there's a video on YouTube. You can go watch it where he's telling the story. I'm just like, what the heck? It's the Twilight Zone. It's like George Orwell, 1984. Well, here I thought the police would be the top police, but it's our own president.
Well, exactly. What do you see? I mean, you being down there at the border, you've seen all of this. You've got videotape.
I tell the American people, arm yourselves to the teeth and get ready for a war, because it ain't going to be pretty. Don't worry about kids coming up to your front porch. Worry about people like MS-13 who do all the assassin work for the cartel members. Worry about drug cartels. Drug cartels have been known to kill our police officers and do assassination work here in the U.S. all the time. They are, and a lot of that's the result of prohibition of drugs. Even though a lot of people don't agree with legalizing, at least you take the black market away from the cartel members. It sure would solve a lot of the border crisis problems, because a lot of that's just them trying to get drugs into our country. The human smuggling is a different story. A lot of that right now is being funded by our own government. It's I can't remember how it's pronounced, the Hegelian dialectic. The government will create, they create the problem, and then they offer the solution. So, like, prohibition of drugs, and then they offered the solution, the war on drugs, which is $1 trillion black hole, and all it did was create more corruption. We have our own government arming the cartels, fast and furious. Whoever heard of it? It's nuts. It's nuts. I guess if you do some research and you look at some old videos, the DEA and the CIA are like the world's biggest cocaine smugglers. It's nuts.
That's very true. Yeah,
so
exactly.
Obviously people are going to do their drugs. If I were president, I would do an executive order to end the war on drugs, regulate it through the free market system like they do alcohol and cigarettes. Nobody kills each other over cigarettes and alcohol. However, they did kill each other over alcohol when there was prohibition of alcohol. That's how we got Al Capone.
Well, true.
You know, I'm not for anybody doing drugs. Don't destroy your body like that. But you know what? By creating prohibition, we're empowering the enemy to become more powerful than the government.
No, it's spoken like a true libertarian, by the way.
What's that?
It's spoken like a true libertarian. However, that's not a bad thing. I'm just saying that's, you know.
Right.
Wow.
Do you know the amount of revenue that would be generated in this country over that? You could abolish homelessness. You could sure secure the border with all that money, too. The sky's the limit. Take care of the national debt. Fix education in this country. Education's wrecked, especially with the new Common Core crap. I just tell people to homeschool if they can, but
absolutely.
I mean,
when you have a government,
we are just like on the verge of absolute chaos and collapse. But people are waking up, and the way I've seen people the way people are waking up lately is blowing my mind because it's really cool to see. We had a meeting here in Mayor, a constitutional meeting, because the people in Mayor want to create their own militia. And I was like, I wonder what this was about. I went there, and they asked me to speak for them. I was shocked because, you know, I was kind of like, well, this is kind of your guys' deal. I don't want to overstep my, you know, I'm very respectful to people when it comes to that. So they let me speak. I couldn't believe how many people were awake. I was like, and they were old people, too. Usually old people don't want to hear anything that's contrary to their views. Very hard to convince somebody who's set in their ways to think differently.
That's true. But let me address this being awake part of the equation here, because this is a conversation I had earlier today. Does this not present, for example, with the way we have the internet, instant communication, all of this, the ability to dissect an incident, to look at something and say, hey, this is could be a false flag, or it looks like a false flag.
Right.
From, you know, the second it happens does this not present a problem to the people in power? And if so, what about the kill switch at the internet?
It does, but it could also be a problem for the people. The don't put it past the government to nuke a city that won't go along with its plans. The one thing you have to realize about government, if the government thinks for 1 second they're going to lose control of their power, they will slaughter millions to keep it. They get desperate and they get scared. Because when they see people rise up, they're like, oh, my gosh, they're going to rise up against us. We're going to lose our power. We're going to lose our positions. We can't have that. So they will do everything they can to stop it. And sometimes resorting to medieval type of things that I just don't want to think of that they would do that, but the possibility is there. They were contemplating doing a drone strike on the Bundy Ranch when we were there. So they said. I didn't believe that, but you know, we were there for a long time, but we survived 8 drone strikes there, by the way. But the potential's there. They have the power to do that.
Wait, I can't let you get away with that statement. You survived 8 drone strikes?
There was a lot of reports of we started making fun of it. There were so many. We're like, oh, yeah, they're going to send in Chuck Norris today via Halo Jump and snipe us all out.
Okay. All right. Yeah. That's why I thought you were.
No, I don't put it
past
them. I mean, look at what they did at Ruby Ridge, and then you had Waco and everything else. So the government does use its resources against its own people when it feels threatened. But because of the fast response by the militia, because of the fast response by the press, and we were able to get that out into the world, we might have saved that family's life. It definitely won the battle, not the war, but we won the battle.
Very important distinction. Yes.
But another thing that's really important that people miss is how our Constitution's been usurped. everybody's like, the Constitution. Well, which one are you talking about? Because there's two different constitutions. People don't realize that because you don't hear about that history in public school at all. People don't know. How 11 states delegates with the ratification process of the 14th Amendment were removed at gunpoint? Read the 14th Amendment. See how free you really are, where it defines our inalienable rights as privileges, defines us as property of corporation. It's insane. If you look at the Black Laws Dictionary, Act of 1871 to form a separate form of government for the British of Columbia.
Interesting, yes.
Yeah, I mean, just think about that, of how no matter who you elect, for some reason we keep getting the same crap. It progresses. They don't just come out and go, oh, we're going to take all your guns today. They do it slowly through simple little laws that usurp our organic constitution. The Federal Reserve and all this stuff, that our founding fathers shot bankers. They didn't want them in our country. They didn't want a centralized banking system. John Adams, I think, had it.
Bankers.
And John Adams, I think, drawled off and shot one. So they did not want, because it's debt enslavement. See, that's what you're seeing right here in America with the whole housing crisis and the banking collapse. The banks didn't collapse. The banks got all the money, and they got all the resources. And now, as a result of the housing collapse, the government now owns 98% of all home loans.
That's right.
So what you're seeing is the government use debt against us to take everything we have. And once they have it all, what will people be willing to do to get it back? Take a mark of the beast? Here, okay, we'll give you your food, we'll give you your job and your house back, but you have to get our mark. Makes you wonder, doesn't it, of how much they're willing to take. Because when people are on their knees, scared, they'll be willing to do anything to get it back. It's only going to be a few of us who are going to be like, no, I'm good. I'll live out here in the woods. I'm happy. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on. But we're definitely enslaved into a huge debt that we did not acquire from birth as a result of this 14th Amendment jurisdiction. If you research it, it'll blow your mind of how bad it really is. And who owns the Federal Reserve, by the way? It's like $9 trillion went missing. But I got a nice video on my YouTube. It's debatable that the government needs taxes at all to survive. To be honest with you, before federal income tax even existed, they had a surplus from other things.
They built Washington without any taxes.
Yeah.
I mean, they ran the government efficiently. The way the world went, the way the U.S. went, before the 1913 Federal Reserve Act, before the 1934 implementing the income tax, they did just fine. Yeah,
they did. So, and now my taxpayer dollars are going to ship terrorists into my country.
Well,
I'm not paying you. I am not giving you my money. You can go ahead and lock me up, but I'm not giving you my money. I would rather go to jail.
Isn't that the only way we can win this game? Is not to play, not to pay, not to play.
But try convincing 300 million Americans to not pay taxes. That's no easy job.
Well, more like
you wouldn't have to convince all of them, but it's hard because people are afraid. Well, if I don't pay my taxes, they'll send in the FBI and they'll take all my stuff. Do you think they'll do that to everybody? Who knows? Maybe they will. I don't know. But I don't want to make it easy for them anymore because I don't think it's right. My taxpayers' dollars should be going to help the people of my country, to help my country, not to be against me. And that's what they're doing with it. They're using our own money to wreck our nation, to wreck us, the people. We the people.
Yeah. And not only that, now the workforce is so diminished that less than half the population are working, and more than half or almost half are receiving some kind of supplemental or government benefits.
I think
which
somebody was
many
saying that,
need.
Like almost 101 million people are collecting some kind of thing from the government for food assistance. That's nuts.
Right. And people do need help. Should be able to get help.
They do need help. And see, here's the problem. What if a president comes in and says, look, enough's enough. You guys shouldn't have to be dependent upon us anymore. We're going to end this. Oh, boy. Because once they have it now, to try to say that we want to end the people's the people being dependent off the federal government, they'll freak out. Because it's hard to convince somebody that they don't need it, that they can do it on their own. Now, I'm talking about Social Security. Obviously, people paid to get Social Security, but there's ways to fix that. You don't have to take that away, like ending the drug war and using the surplus for you know what I mean. There's so many ways that they can end certain things to fill the gap on other things, and everybody would be A-okay. You can combat all of homelessness by ending the F-35 program. Was it like $391 million? You could buy every homeless guy in America a $600,000 home. You know,
exactly. Exactly.
Where's our priorities? Why are our priorities always on bombing everybody in the freaking world when our own citizens get back on their feet? It's sick. It's sick. It's sad.
Well, you got a lot of Blaine. Got a lot of people writing in wanting to know where they can follow you, view your YouTubes. Give out your information where people can follow you.
Oh, just look me up on Facebook. Just put in Blaine Cooper. I should pop right up. If you can't get me there, you can go to the website resurrecttherepublic.com. I do some stuff there, and then on YouTube in the search bar, just put in Blaine Cooper. I should pop right up.
Okay, Blaine Cooper.
Now I do have another channel out there that I can't get into right now, so that's why I had to make a new one. But yeah.
Okay. Resurrect.
I don't have a website, so
okay.
I probably should get one.
Yeah, you should. I mean, you're an articulate young man, and you're an activist, as far as I'm concerned, by definition. Resurrect the Republic. Is that what you said?
Yeah, yeah. That's what I want to do. I want to restore the constitutional republic. We're in a democracy, and it's the direct road to disaster. It's not a constitutional republic anymore. They ruined that a long time ago. And to restore that, it's going to be tough. But I believe we can do it. But it's going to take a lot of hope, a lot of prayer, and we're going to have to get off our butts and actually start doing something for once. Obviously, we can't make a utopia, but I think we can get close.
I think we need to get off of our butts. Boy, I'll tell you something, Blaine. You've been a breath of fresh air tonight. I got to tell you, I'm excited, and I do hope that you will keep us posted about all of your endeavors, especially along the border. And I hope you join us again to give us updates and let us know the next time you.
Just to let everybody know. Because a lot of people think because the militia's down there at the border, we want to kill a bunch of kids and stuff. It's ridiculous. That's not why we're there. Obviously, if we found children who were starving or thirsting through the desert, we would treat them like our own children. That's not what we're about, okay? But but we didn't see that at all. We saw very evil people who would not hesitate to cut your little kids in pieces. And it's not just drug cartels. There's Islamic. We found prayer rugs. ISIS wants to come to ISIS just threatened to take down Obama. Talk about boldness. Said he wants he'll run ISIS right through the Mexico border and take. He says, "We're coming for you, Obama." Look that up. I mean, that's the kind of threat you're facing down at the border because we refuse. Why are all our troops overseas? Send them to the border. Lock it down. You know,
that's true. Got about 15 seconds, my friend.
We're not racist because America is obviously made up of Hispanic, Caucasian, Arab, Indian, Native American. We're all made up of very great people who are legal citizens in this country, and we need to protect that.
100% behind you. Blaine Cooper, thank you so much. God bless. We're at the end of the program. Thank you so much for joining us. You take care, my friend.
You too.
All right. That'll do it for tonight, folks. Until tomorrow. Stay safe and God bless.